Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. Miranda Barnes, an economics student, had high hopes. She passed her ninth grade exams with flying colors, but had to give up her dreams of higher education. Her mother had been painfully ill for a long time, unable to work and provide for the family. Having entered college, Miranda took part-time jobs washing floors in offices, in the corridors, and even in the entrances of her house. She had to support not only her mother, but also her 9-year-old brother. At night, Barnes studied exams to continue her studies to get a scholarship. In 3 years, the girl could become an outstanding economist, get a job in a prestigious firm, and finally organize her life. Now, Miranda's situation was quite deplorable. She gave the last money for her mother's medicine and could not buy food at home. Pathetic handfuls of groats orphaned the girl that she could not cope. Hopelessness and the ever-hungry and begging look of her brother made her go to shameful lengths. Sometimes she heard the reproaches of her classmates as she rushed to the dining hall first, trying to pick up leftover portions from the table or stack bread for her mom and brother just to eat. The beautiful Lisa, whose tuition was paid for by her father, spoke mockingly. This Lisa was an arrogant girl with no intelligence. She studied for appearances so that she could inherit her father's firm and learn to know a little about business. The girl gathered her own crowd around her, often went out through parties. She's been hanging out with a few guys at a time. Lisa had 2 friends, Camille and Emily, lower in status, but ingratiating herself to them with her deserved a place next to the star of the course. And she's a bum. Nothing to talk to her about. Emily seconded her friend's arrogant tone. Miranda walked by and pushed her hard from something she had fallen over and scattered a piece of bread. Trinity laughed evilly and walked away, and Miranda gathered it up with pain in her heart. I took the bread. Mommy, forgive me, I'll manage. We're making a big soup tonight. I'll throw potatoes from the neighbor, and you won't starve. She whispered the words to the collective farms. Big tears were flowing down her cheeks, covering the world with a shroud of grief. Day after day, Barnes endured the taunts of her classmates. She began to be shunned. After lectures, the girl ran home, invented, and what to feed the household. The family lived in a dorm room, which was knocked out by her mother when her father abandoned them. Hunger drove Miranda to despair. She did not eat bread for days, giving everything to her family. Her mother never got out of bed, only stroked her daughter's head and cried. Charles looked at her hungrily every time and hoped that her sister had brought something tasty. Miranda's mind was running wild with thoughts of how to get money. Salaries and scholarships. Miranda scrambled for groats, vegetables, and medicine, but the pennies she received were not enough. Already in a week, the resources were depleted. Going to the social services was useless. They only shook their heads that they were not entitled to disability allowance and that there was nothing they could do. Desperate, Miranda decided to find a job in a store and, if necessary, to abandon her studies. Browsing through the newspaper, she came across a suspiciously tempting offer. It was a promise to pay a fortune for a favor. Barnes decided that for the sake of her brother and mother, she would do anything, even if she had to break the law, made an appointment, and listened to the offer. But what the man offered was out of line. He yelled at his employer. The girl ran out. She wandered for a long time through the streets of the city over her head, watched the sun from the sky, sluggishly shining from behind the clouds, filling her soul with despair. When she returned home, she heard Charles crying in the kitchen. "Charles, what's wrong?" "Honey, they wouldn't let me in the cafeteria at school. They said I was a thief, taking other people's bread. I'm just hungry. You made me porridge this morning, and it's already gone. Don't listen to anyone. We'll live again, I promise. I'll pay for your meals in the canteen, and no one will say you're a thief. Wait, I brought some from college. Here's the container. It's potatoes and meat. Lucky for me, the cook took pity and gave me a loan. Hopelessness, emptiness. To go to my mom and ask for advice. Mom, hi, I brought some food. How are you feeling today? Thank you, my daughter. I even read a book. My headache is almost gone. Thank you. You eat, and I'll eat later. No, I ate in the cafeteria. I got a free meal. Mom, I need your advice. Help me. Whatever you say, don't be shy. It's easier to think together when you're in trouble. That's right, isn't it? Mom, the social services want to file a guardianship for us. They might take me and Charles to an orphanage. They think it's against the law. When the mother is incapacitated, Miranda, you're my girl, but you know I won't be around much longer. Maybe it's for the best. Evelyn cried and turned away. But Mom, there's a way out. Let's move to the country. Our grandmother left us a house there. No one will find us there. But you know, I'm ashamed to say that. I've been offered a job. It's going to pay a lot of money. Just you, don't judge me. I'd do anything for my brother. Mom, they'll give me $500,000 if I sell my virginity. Mother cried out. She got up from the bed and fell down, unconscious. Miranda, I realized I was wrong, to be frank. She should have made that decision herself and not told anyone what price she had paid for her well-being. Barely regaining consciousness, my mother briefly said, "Don't you dare." Then she turned away and did not speak again. What happened next scared the whole family beyond belief. In the evening, a courier delivered a thick package labeled Beauty Queen. The package contained money, 500,000 rubles. Miranda was horrified, coming to her senses a little. She pensively went through the bills, pleasant ones emptied between her fingers. Such money she had never seen before. As if in a daze, the girl didn't notice Charles enter and staggered in, staring at the money. "Oh, you've robbed someone." "I don't need that. I need you, or the police will take you away." "How will I live alone?" "I'm hungry, I'll walk." "Just give it back. We don't need it like this." The brother hugged his sister and cried silently. "What are you doing?" "I earned it. I just got paid right away. Then you have to work for another 6 months. But that's scrubbing floors. But you're a fool. You're mine. Who's lying so stupidly? It's not true, everyone. You can't pay so much for the floors. Give it back. It's better to be poor, but to live honestly. And I need you more than money myself." "Yes, yes, of course. I'll explain everything later. We won't take ours. Don't worry, honey, just do your homework." A little later, James, the man with the dirty intentions, called her again. He assured that he was ready to woo a beautiful girl, that she had conquered him, and he was ready to wait as long as it took. Here, the man was not lying. Natural blonde Miranda was endowed with extraordinary natural beauty, blue eyes, unusually long, thick eyelashes, delicate, plump, pink lips, long braid to the waist, incredible stature, and slender figure made Barnes fabulously lovely. But the girl never had a boyfriend. Unrequited in love with her young men, cold Barnes rejected. She did not think about the groom and relationships. Family and school were always at the center. And now the world was falling apart. After a week, Miranda made up her mind. All the more reason to spend the money. In her heart, she had already resigned herself to it and realized that there was no other way out. As if in an eclipse, she bought 2 bottles of valerian and arranged a meeting. She prepared for the event sluggishly, dressed up in a gray dress, drinking medicine with vodka for the first time in her life. Bad weather played out outside. The wind picked up trash from the lawns and swept it from side to side. A frown from the sky shut out the sun, a hopeless life. Nausea, longing. She was picked up by a black car, some very expensive brand. Miranda cried all the way, her whole body shaking. It was a long drive. During this time, the drug took effect, plunging the girl into a closer state. Getting out of the car, she saw a huge cottage. The iron gate closed behind her. The owner of the house came out, gave instructions to the guards, and led her into a spacious bedroom. Afterwards, the girl seemed to lose consciousness. Not seeing, not understanding, not feeling what was happening in the distance, an angry voice was heard somewhere. "Bitch, "What are you doing there drunk? I didn't buy a sack of potatoes. Do me a favor, pretend you're not dead." He shook her and slapped her cheeks, but she had no desire to move. Soon it was over, but the owner didn't express any satisfaction. He cursed at the top of his lungs. He hurled insults. Then he told me to take this unnecessary junk away. Away. The girl woke up in the hospital in the morning. It turned out that kind-hearted passers-by found Miranda on a bench outside the house and called an ambulance. It seemed that she was no longer breathing, did not show any signs of life. The soft sun shone through the window with warm rays. The blue sky could be seen in the distance, marveling with a clear birch tint. It seemed incredibly cozy in the warm, snow-white bed. The phone rang. James demanded to repay the debt tonight, demanding an adequate condition. Miranda suddenly burst out laughing and didn't stop for a long time. Then she began to sob and howl in pain and disgust at herself. The nurse who came running in shook her head. She gave her an injection and left her to rest. Miranda went to the window, opened it, and jumped outside. Her room was on the first floor. Barely able to stay on her feet from the dizziness, she resolutely went home straight in her hospital gown. Picking up her things was disgusting. She'd even left her cell phone behind, a reminder of the horrible deal. Barnes became a different kind of tough, unwavering, courageous. An hour later, she was home. The money she received was in her mother's account. It was more secure that way. But there was no time to pack, realizing she couldn't get rid of James that easily. Miranda moved Charles and her mother to the village in advance, hiding them in her grandmother's hut. There was no time for a sabbatical. They had to leave in a hurry. Looking at the street, I froze in horror. A black car stood at the entrance. Thinking a little, Miranda headed for her mother's closet, where old and unnecessary things were left. Had to work hard, putting on several layers of sweatshirt pants. On top of that, she put on an intimidating-looking wool dress, covered her shoulders with a shawl over her head, tied a shawl over it up to her eyebrows. Had to work on his face, making a few strokes with a dark pencil. In this guise, Barnes would not have been able to recognize her own mother's down-mouthed mother, but she closed the room slowly. Limping out into the street, without looking around, she moved away. After a few hundred meters, Miranda walked into a shopping mall, dumped her things in the restroom, and washed her face. But it was dangerous to go to the train station like that. Withdrawing a small amount from her card, she called a cab and drove to another city to take a bus from there. Late in the evening, the girl boarded a bus going to her mother's ancestral nest. In the morning only she would reach the final stop where her new life would begin. That same day, James owns a car dealership and wants younger girls. Was ready to turn the whole town over looking for Miranda. His men searched the room, circled buses, trains, visited the college. But the girl disappeared without a trace. The man searched for her for another week in a rage, and then resigned himself to buying a new toy. Miranda, on the other hand, finally breathed freely. The bitterness of having to drop out of college soon subsided. A new leisure chair was bought for her mother. Charles was placed in a local school, where he made new friends, easily establishing a rapport with the class. Mindful of poverty, Barnes bought her brother clothes and toys, learned how to cook, spoiling the family. Outdoors in her home village where she was born and raised, Evelyn was able to feel much better. She started getting up, walking around the yard, inviting acquaintances to visit. Miranda herself took a job at the hospital as a cleaner, realizing that the money would quickly run out. It would seem that now everything will be different. However, suddenly the girl learned terrible news. She was pregnant. Miranda felt sick for a month. Then she realized that nausea and weakness is not for nothing. At the hospital, some nurses she knew got in touch. She met a gynecologist. That's how Miranda found out that in a few months she would become a mother herself. And from whom? The thought of James brought fear and disgust. One night she went to her mother, determined to tell her everything. "Mom, I'm sorry." "Daughter, don't say it. I can't take it. I never will." What happened? I know, it was clear right away. But I'm expecting a baby. Miranda cried out. Evelyn, what are you doing? Once you know how to do it, what do you say? Life is out of your heart. But don't say anything yet. I need to think. You know I won't retrain you. What will you decide? It's up to you. Now go and leave me alone. I can't think straight yet. I'll hurt you. You can't forgive me with harsh words. As Miranda left, she saw her mother weeping inaudibly, her chest sighing heavily with pain. It was their last conversation. In the morning, Evelyn did not come out for breakfast. Anxiously, Miranda passed into the room. Her mother was lying on her back, smiling. Real estate, next to Karabanov's note. I'm sorry, I've put an impossible burden on you. All because of me. Take care of your grandson or granddaughter. Mason, name it. Bless you, be happy for me. Don't cry there, I'll be happier. Long Miranda sat over this scrap of paper beside the one she loved with all her heart, burned heavy, fell on her shoulders, pressed to the ground, as if she would not get down. The soul is all living things on earth, burying her mother the girl, as she could comfort her brother. Every day he ran to the grave, lay down on the cold stones, and cried. Pregnancy was not easy, but obeying her mother's dictates, Miranda was determined to keep this soul innocent of the sins of men. Charles had changed. He hardly spoke to his sister, walking around, hanging around in the countryside for days on end. It was as if he was jealous of his sister, thinking he was alone in the world. His mother was dead, and he wouldn't need him anytime soon. One day he didn't come home. All the money was missing from his wallet. A month later, a letter arrived from an orphanage that was in a neighboring town. It said that Miranda Barnes was to appear immediately for a court hearing. She was not yet 18 years old at the time. During the proceedings, it became clear that the children should remain in the care of the state. It turned out that Charles himself came to the orphanage, asking for a place. The scandal around Barnes gained momentum. The pregnant girl could not allow such an attitude. She threw everything to the mercy of fate and ran away into the unknown. The wandering continued. Now she had neither mother nor brother, and it was dangerous to return home. The only consolation was that in a month she would be 18, and after a couple more months she would become a mother, and then she would be able to build her own life. Miranda had no choice but to return to the city. She rented an apartment for 2 months, bought things for the baby, and had little money left for living expenses. But then she could go back to her dorm room and find a job. The only thing left was to hope for a care allowance after the baby was born. Now Miranda felt incredibly sad and lonely. It was as if half her life had been lost. Once in her life. 2 years later, Miranda was raising her son Mason. She was struggling to pay for daycare, to run a household. The allowance wasn't enough. So as soon as she managed to get her son into kindergarten, Miranda found a job at the airport, cleaning restrooms. But the pay was a little higher than for a regular coupon in the stores. It was only her second month. She did this job, took Saturday and Sunday off to take care of the baby. Life seemed hopeless. The endless scrubbing of every surface, floor to ceiling, was starting to make her arms and back ache. Already at a young age, she had compromised her health and probably earned a chronic disease. The dream of getting an education seemed to be in the distant past. On another day off, she took a walk in the park. Enjoying the beautiful spring weather at the nearest stall, she bought some food. It was the first time in a month to treat herself and the child to something tasty. So she walked down the alley, serene, watching her son play. Look, the girls heard someone's mocking but familiar voice beside her. Barnes, you only want to eat. Always hungry. Nothing's changed. Where'd you go? Got kicked out for stealing bread. Her friends laughed and wanted to say something nasty. At that moment, Mason ran up to Miranda and hugged her with his little arms, resting his head on her stomach. Mommy, let's go over there. Woof. Mom, go. Come on, son. Show me where the wolf is. Be careful, they can bite. Bite, and no hand. The girl grabbed her son's hand and jokingly tried to bite him. They both laughed and walked away, leaving a stunned Lisa, the former classmate, and her girlfriends in thoughtfulness. The picture of family happiness, pain slashed, heart hovering. They fueled time, living as if in a fog, unable to see the meaning of life. Partying got boring. Studying was annoying. Sham friendship was a convention. Now before their eyes unfolded the picture of a kindly, warm relationship between a son and his mother. They didn't have that. Something twinged in their souls, but it didn't come out. It remained deeply hidden. Let's go. Our fool is also a whore. You. Forget it. My Arcelor is so cool. Lisa loves me so much. But she thought sadly that only a child is ready for selfless love. Barnes, on the other hand, was indifferent to such remarks. It was only sad that she had to abandon her studies. She could have been a good financier. On the course, Miranda coped with all the tasks better than anyone else. She found solutions easily and planned things well. Once she even found a mistake in the accounting reports. Because of this, she could lose her scholarship. It's all ahead of her. I can do it, she said proudly to the entire park. The emptiness around, she replied as Mason ran beside her, captivating in its agile, intricate nature. The child was no trouble, immediately showed independence. Without tears went to the garden, ahead of peers in development for a year. He was the meaning of life, a source of happiness. Only upsetting was the constant lack of money. This endless, miserable existence. But Mason, as a grown man, did not complain. As if sensing his worries, Miranda ran with all her legs and hugged him. Mommy, I love you. The work continued, only the desire to please her son, at least something, gave strength. By the end of the day, my legs wouldn't listen. Confused, the head treacherously pitied, and hands barely dragged. Heavy buckets. Water had to be drawn in a special room, which was on the opposite side of the toilets. Drawing water in the restrooms itself was forbidden. The sink was not adapted to put a tall bucket in a day. She sometimes had to change the water 50 times. The airport was breathing. Knocked, shouted. In general, lived its noisy polyphony of life. No one paid attention to the cleaning lady in a blue robe and kerchief, hiding the beauty of a young girl. The annoyance was poked when she put a sign about cleaning stalls were memorized, and a mop was thrown into a bucket with annoyance. She could easily be yelled at, considering dumpsters to be an inferior, unworthy link of humanity. The long-awaited Friday came. The last day of her shift, her back and arms ached treacherously. Miranda dragged a bucket of water to the men's restroom, thoughtfully tilted her head, and didn't even realize how she crashed into the man. The bucket insidiously slipped out of his hands, and a knee-deep stream of water hit him, a tall gentleman in a black coat. The man dropped the folder out of surprise. The sheets scattered and sailed like long-distance ships into the distance. And then, my dear, what kind of sabotage is this? The man shrieked indignantly. Oh, I was scared to death. Miranda, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, for God's sake. This man's face she had definitely seen on TV, so she rushed to gather the sheets. The one who had gone sailing. Out of curiosity, she glanced at the contents. Something caught her eye. She, absent-mindedly aghast, gathered the rest of the sheets and sat down in the middle of the waiting room in a puddle. The reading was curious. Someone who could circumvent the law in such a sophisticated way was admirable. However, there were unacceptable errors in the documents, covered obvious financial fraud. The man in the black cloak jumped up to Miranda and snatched the papers. You don't need these. What tactlessness. He wanted to leave, but involuntarily admired the girl. Barnes's headscarf and Russian braid fell treacherously to her knees. Clear blue eyes looked reproachful. The man hummed and put up a hand. Get up. How did it come to this? That you run around with such heavy buckets adult uncles knocking down. A saboteur. Excuse me, I work here. No, I wasn't planning on running over any grown men. Suddenly, as if from beneath the ground, 2 guards of huge staff men appeared, obligingly closing them off from Barnes, and the mayor of the city. She recognized him now. However, she managed to shriek shrilly, "Jacob, excuse me, may I address you?" The mayor, smiling, approached Miranda. He was flattered to be recognized. "Report, Comrade Cadet." Jacob shrank back in tone. Whispered Barnes, "There are unacceptable mistakes in your documents. They stretch to several years of imprisonment. I'm sorry, but I'm sure it's someone's evil joke, or in other words, someone wanted to trick you and set you up." "What? What are you talking about? How dare you even say that to me? There's no such thing as a janitor with legal skills. I'll check it out though. Goodbye." He said something to the guard and left. The ambo moved towards the girl, scaring the hell out of her with his determined look. Miranda expelled and ran away. However, she slipped and fell into a puddle. The guard was approaching already with a soul-filling intensity. She got on all fours and quickly crawled away. However, she slipped again and collapsed. "Madam, you are all right," gargled a voice from above, and the man obligingly put up his hand. "Why did you fall from me? Let me ask you this. I need to write down your phone number." "Ah, that of course I understand." After writing down her details, the ambo withdrew. Miranda collected water in a bucket and went to work with an hour to go before the end of the shift. And it was also necessary to wash the cubicles for the last time to turn in the post of night cleaner. This incident was almost forgotten. Only did not give rest to these brown, piercing eyes. The major was a truly handsome man. Miranda mentioned the conversation and the smile with which Jacob looked at the cleaning lady. The story, however, continued quite unexpectedly. On Sunday, she received a phone call from the city administration. "Hello, can I hear Miranda Barnes?" "Yes, this is me. You have a call from City Hall on behalf of Jacob. Monday, May 25th. You need to come in for an interview." "What interview? Will they explain it to you when you see them?" "Good day." Miranda hung up the phone in amazement, then exhaled and ran to her son's room. "Mason, my son, how much I love you. Mommy is very, very, very lucky." She namesake tickled and tossed her son, expressing with that exuberant delight. "Mom, did they give you a present?" The administration had to be packed very carefully, but there were no decent things. She found only black classic pants and a white blouse. There was not enough money on the cover. She had to tidy up the things she had. The looks, on the other hand, could be worked on. From the evening, she led the way on the tiles, determined to curl at least her hair. In the morning, she took her son and began the transformation. She chose from the meager cosmetic pink lipstick, brown pencil, and mascara, slightly added eyes, tinted eyelashes, slightly touched lips, lipstick, unraveled her hair, which incredible cascade turned an unassuming cleaning lady into a Hollywood beauty. Dressed up, she headed to the interview, trembling like an aspen leaf. Miranda's dazzling beauty impressed even the guards. They silently took the passport, intently and brazenly looking at Barnes. The pass was ready in advance. Armed with a plastic card, Miranda went to the second floor. She was met by a friendly receptionist, explained the nature of the case. It turned out that the administration had fired a consultant, an economic advisor on purpose or inadvertently, who had made a mistake in important reports of the very ones that sailed like ships, trying to tell the catchphrases. The first interview was conducted by the head of the financial department, Noah. He asked formal questions, twirled his ninth-grade honors certificate, shook his head. "Miranda, do you have any other education?" "No, I didn't graduate from the College of Economic and International Relations." "You are on maternity leave from your sabbatical. Can you continue your studies?" "Probably not. I can't recover. It's been too long. And if you are helped to recover, are you ready to study?" "Yes," Miranda said without hesitation. Her heart jumped joyfully in her chest. "Tell me, how much did you study for a year and a half? And let me clarify, how did you study?" "I passed every session with honors." "So you're an outstanding student. Isn't that right?" "Well, Jacob vouched for me. And those documents at the airport really only an outstanding financier would have seen through such a clever scam in a minute. "Oh, you're not an easy girl," suddenly fatherly told the interlocutor. "Only your soul is tormented by grief. Well, it's not for me to tell you. I think today you should meet with your benefactor. And then it's off to human resources. But sweet young lady, have a nice day. I'll see you later. Thank you very much." Miranda left with a light heart. She didn't realize that such a responsible, nervous position in the administration could be filled with kind, helpful people. The secretary escorted her to the mayor's reception area. The personal assistant greeted her less welcomingly. He smirked wryly, staring at the visitor's old black pants. "If you'd be so kind as to wait a moment, I will inform Jacob." She picked up the phone and businesslike reported Miranda. A minute later invited into the office the mayor in a huge leather chair, bright red, squinted slyly. Considered the applicants for the new position. A powerful energy emanated from the man. With one look, it seemed, he could take cities. "Hello, sweet saboteur." "Good afternoon, Jacob. I am incredibly grateful for your invitation. I promise, if I'm allowed to work, I will work hard." "Miranda Viktorovna, there's no need to be so formal. I've looked into your background and made some inquiries. I'm sorry that the best and most promising students have to drop out because of their families. It's true. Your mother and brother needed care. If necessary, Charles will come back and live with you." Miranda couldn't stand the tension, and large tears ran down her cheeks, leaving black smudges of cheap mascara. The man, on the other hand, lowered his head, barely holding back the tears raiding his neck. He remembered that poor girl with the big bucket there at the airport, and she was a financial genius, faithfully abandoned by everyone. The poverty was there, raising a child, a beautiful, intelligent girl whose fate was so unfair. Miranda wiped away her tears and looked directly at the mayor. "I will be grateful to you for the rest of my life. You saved not only me, but also people dear to me. May the belief that there are still good people willing to help a child in the world. Miranda, we'll meet again. Perhaps you should go to human resources, and believe me, it's all behind you. I am now personally looking after your future." Pletneva vented her frustration on herself as well. She thought painfully about whom he had written to her and missed her, but she didn't want to be a burden. That's why he ran away from home. Thought it would be less trouble for his beloved sister that way. Miranda never accepted his brother's sacrifice, and now she could easily take him away. The unexpected patronage gave her strength. With a sinking heart, she took the list of necessary documents from the personnel department and left the building. The world was different. Happiness filled her soul, but she still had to wait for the settlement at the airport. The little money needed to be spent on a decent suit. For the first time in 3 months, there was no need to drag heavy buckets across the hall. She raised her head to the sun, but suddenly noticed James, Mason's father. But the man, though he recognized her, only grinned and drove away. Barnes, and it was scary. Life was just getting better. And then a call from the past. A coldness filled my soul. Miranda decided to pick up her son early from the garden and walk with him. She didn't want to be afraid and cry anymore. Mason rushed joyfully to his mother and clung to her, hugging her with unrestrained babbling. The son was always trying to tell her something. Coming home. Now he was blaming something, which was taking a bite of the cutlet from his plate. Miranda laughed as she listened to her son's strange phrases. "As I approached the house, I saw a familiar figure and rushed away." Then she walked resolutely to the entrance. A man approached her mockingly. James shook his head and chuckled. "Hello, my beautiful, beautiful face. Don't you remember what you owe me? Hello, let's talk. Count 20% of your income in favor of your son for 19 months. Who's gonna count that debt? You know, connections don't help. Children are sacred. So how much do you owe me? Excluding 500,000 of that amount. Or maybe I'll even do the paperwork and company reports myself." She suddenly felt desperately angry. "Do you owe me compensation?" It's because of you that I had nothing to feed my son. It's because of you, you bastard. I dropped out of college. And you know what molestation is. I could put you away. And now you're taking my life. Go ahead. Just think of your son, how he's gonna live with a murdering father." James changed his face, turned white, clenched his fists. But suddenly he saw the clear blue eyes of Mason, who stood manfully between him and his mother, and calmly, so maturely said, "Don't hurt your mom. What's your name?" "Boy." "It's a little cold, James." Well, Mason didn't answer, took his mom's hand and pulled her into the house. Miranda and Belle's heart was filled with hatred mixed with fear and disgust, but she was determined that she could stand up for herself and her son, feed her son, and put him to bed. She called the police, saying there was an intruder in the house. The lawman arrived surprisingly quickly. Barnes detailed that a man had been stalking her for several days. She gave the license plate number of James' car and described his appearance. The war was on. It was too late to retreat. After seeing the guests off, the girl thought she should have told the truth. The case was not easy. She should have been more careful. Act thoughtfully, not rashly. For now, the plan was simple. If anything happened to her or the baby, the police would have James and a harassment report. The weekend ahead was a new job and a new life. After a month, the girl had settled into her favorite job. In addition, she managed to recover in college, having secured the support of the administration. In a year, she will receive the coveted crusts. Until then, the documents only listed as an assistant. Young age was not an obstacle to phenomenal efficiency. Miranda's talents in finance in general were unrivaled. She checked documentation, instantly found errors in calculations, easily made estimates, helped to plan the budget. Patient, calm employees quickly got used to her, considering her opinion in many matters. In the evenings, for an additional reward from the same accountant, helped that with the monthly routine. Learned Barnes, in absentia in time to catch up over the weekend. A joyous event occurred in the family. Brother Charles returned. As the prodigal son long cried, repented, begged forgiveness. Miranda was granted guardianship. The family was now receiving an allowance. Charles changed a lot, becoming softer and more independent. He grew very fond of his nephew. He took him to the garden, walked, and played with him. Miranda's brother was wary of his new job. He was frightened by the responsibility that his sister took on his shoulders. Sometimes under the windows loomed the mournful figure of James, who had already been divorced twice. He had no children of his own, but his son Miranda kept the man busy. He brought gifts, tried to get to know her, talking Barnes into forgiving him. Forget old grudges. Let him see his son. The girl was adamant. Over time, working in administration hardened her, made her tougher. By duty, Miranda communicated with different people, met on work with adult established personalities, sharks of finance, different kinds of bosses, owners of entrepreneurs. The name of the legendary Miranda Barnes was increasingly heard at the top. She was indeed a brilliant financier and mathematician, to some extent even a fanatical workaholic. Not seeing life around her, timid attempts of colleagues to evoke sympathy in her, to make friendship every time ended in failure. Barnes became an implacable feminist. To start a relationship did not know how and did not want to. It was only with a sinking heart that she entered the mayor's office. He was the only one who caused her any kind of crazy excitement and trepidation. The girl hid these feelings deep in her heart, not changing the cold expression on her face under any circumstances. Time was passing swiftly. The Barnes family fixed the housewarming party. It happened on graduation day, with the administration's approval. The single mother graduates were given a 2-bedroom apartment right on the waterfront. The fabulous beauty of the housing awakened Miranda's exuberant enthusiasm, forgetting everything in the world like a small child. She ran and galloped through the rooms, crying, kissing the frame and Mason. Charles tried to keep his face. He was afraid that all this prosperity was a dream. He would open his eyes, and the fairy tale would be over. Mason, on the other hand, shared a wild laugh with his mother. And when he saw his room, he lay down on the bed with his toys and laughed. In the evening, the family had a feast. Miranda invited her friend Varia from work, the same accountant who didn't always get things done. Kelly was much older than her friend, had a husband and 2 school-aged children. When the kids went to bed, they had a strange conversation. "Miranda, you are the heroine of a new fairy tale. There's never been a story like this before, but it's only in the movies, and you can't say you're lucky. You just earned it all with your brain. I wish I had a brain like that. Thank you. How's your family doing? What about us? My Spartans and my dad are camping for a week in some mountains. Where are they gonna find those mountains? I'm supposed to be bored. You know what I get high on? I come home, I have order, I don't have to cook for anyone. I eat my own noodles and relax. Of course I miss you, just not enough to wait for them tomorrow. Haha. What kind of optimist are you? Valka, I can't do that. I live with my guard up, with the fear that someone's following me. And James is following me around, threatening to take my son, but he can't. I've got the kind of defenders that would break him in a heartbeat. That's not right, Miranda. You're too bold. Do you know what they really say about you? No offense, but they call me Einstein and this Papa Carla. That's all good to say to your face. I hear your name a lot. She was a hell of a spinner. She was primitive. I just love my job. What's there to say? All we know is you know who you're dating. You do the financials. But how do you know? You're not the first one to do it. Only then everyone's out of office like a cork in a bottle. After seemingly innocent calculations, how many before me? But Kelly raised an eyebrow at me. 3 were taken, I believe, although they say they left on their own. So much for turnover. It's not an indicator of anything. It's a sign of mediocrity. You don't get it. Only 2 people need the truth, the mater and the head of the finance department. And with you in office, I had to shut down all my business. So you're like a bone in everyone's throat. You're a truthful worker. I'm worried about you. Listen, what's all the fake stuff they're throwing at me? Why am I looking at business files? It's a very dark old story. There was a case a couple years ago where the mayor's daughter was stolen. There's a lot of bad guys in town, so they asked him not for money, but to cover something up. Then they found the kidnappers, put them away. A week later, his daughter disappeared again. Didn't take any more chances. Only it's a secret. I overheard it myself. He's the mayor, but he's not the mayor. The mafia's so powerful, the administration's just a front. It's a cover for dark deeds. So you wonder where you're going with this. Financial genius, be careful. What should I say? It's too late. You've been showing off with your smarts. I'm afraid for you. I'd hire security. Miranda exhaled with difficulty, barely recovering from her astonishment. You should be writing a book of fairy tales. You're imaginative, too. Tell me you're playing a trick on me. You're silly, young, inexperienced, and the halo over your head to the heavens. You know, I was walking. Who could even make such a thing up? Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Miranda rushed to open the door, afraid that the children would wake up on the run, noting that it was strange that someone had found out about the new place so quickly. Kelly rushed to the stove and found the heaviest skillet. Hi, cheekily squeezing through the door. James, I just came by to say congratulations. He taught Chelney the sea and the hostess a bouquet of daisies, pulled out a wooden horse and a laptop. Here to my son and Charles' laptop, let it be. You don't think anything bad. I realized everything a long time ago. Miranda thought. Silence. Nothing portended trouble. Kelly came in the hallway with a frying pan in her hands, and like a samurai, she pounced on the guest. And you're a goddamn bandit. Get the hell out of here. Kelly, calm down. The man came here in peace. Miranda laughed uncontrollably, sat down on the horse, sobbing and laughing. Oh goodness, that hurt. Didn't even give me a couple of smacks. Maybe my brains would have fallen into place. The friends laughed in unison. Kelly joined Miranda on the horse. They screamed together, "But you, too. You. What, are they both drunk or something? I'll come back tomorrow when you've come to your senses." James grumbled and cursed and went out, but the one in the hallway fell in. Sleepy children, those crazy eyes on the mother and her strange guest. Mom, is there a war? What are you doing? Are you torturing Masha? Oh, and who is this to? For you, son, Dad brought it. Charles, if you don't want it, throw it out the kitchen window. James hasn't left yet. He's got a better shot. The girls laughed again, and the children with them. They did not understand the essence, but they supported the general fun. Kelly stayed the night. In the morning, they went to work together. As they approached their friend's car, Miranda said thoughtfully, "I've given up on Kelly." It was the first time James had called her father in front of her son, and Mason hadn't even asked. It's like he always knew James was his father. It's not for me to decide or give advice. It's bad enough without a father, but it's worse with a citizen like that. He'll never change. You shouldn't trust him. We'll see. But it's safer if there's a truce. When I think he's going to steal my son, I feel bad. When they got to the administration office, the girls separated. Miranda sent her friend to work and went to the nearest stall to buy a local newspaper. She liked to read the news on paper. But this time Barnes never showed up at her workplace. The whole staff called her and visited her at home. Charles greeted the visitors anxiously. The news of the disappearance stunned him. But the boy was bright and independent. He decided to pick up Mason from the day care center himself and then invite Uncle James. Although he disliked this man, but he did not know the whole truth, so he decided that the adult would help them get away from the guardianship. Charles realized with a secret instinct that something similar would happen to his sister, but no grief would break him, and he would not leave his nephew to his fate. Until evening, no one could find traces of the disappeared girl to the stall. She had never made it. The saleswoman knew her by sight and convinced her that they had seen nothing. And the girl did not buy a newspaper. At the guard post, they brought up the videotapes. But the girl calmly walked along the road and then sharply accelerated her step and turned the corner of the neighboring building, where there was no stall. What happened, and why did she change her route? The guard asked. She told me to go, and she seemed to be rushing me. But I can only speculate on that, Kelly said bitterly. In hot pursuit, Miranda was reported missing without waiting for the allotted 3 days. What kind of law is that? It takes 3 days to kill a man. And the police are waiting for something. A week of searching hasn't yielded any results. That day, the cameras were covered up or defaced. What happened to the girl after she rounded the corner remained a mystery. Went through all the new cars entering the yard. Reviewed the security footage from the cameras inside the entryway. The trail was broken. The cops were just throwing their hands up in the air. Jacob was walking around scowling and angry. It was as if he knew something, but when questioned, he was short, to the point. After realizing that the official authorities were no help, hired a private investigator named Liam Donaldson, best tracker in the city. The mayor had a long talk with the detective. He was ready to give away long-standing secrets because he felt a responsibility to this brilliant girl whose talents he had to share. During the year, Miranda had done a lot of left-handed errands and had even been pressured to do so. But about whom and what reports the financier had forged, he did not know. Liam was a man with a capital letter. He decided to visit the family first to help and support the children. But this issue had been resolved long ago. James was able to complete the paperwork in a month, installing not only Mason, but Charles as well. The heroic step of redemption gave life meaning. Only Mason cried relentlessly, calling for his mother and sleeping badly at night. When the detective visited the children, he saw them in a dejected state. Life flowed mechanically among them. Nothing gave them joy. Charles tried to tell as much as possible about his sister. The detective dwelt especially on the 2 moments of the escape to the village and the incident at the airport. "Charles, did your sister ever tell you what she did at work?" "But you know, she even showed me. She used to bring it home. It was nothing special. You know, calculate sums of money. Like building a house, for example, or write a report. How much you spent, how much you saved, that kind of thing. What time did you usually get back?" And then after lunch, by about 4 o'clock, I remembered Charles. She was often late. It was rarely before the weekend, usually at the end of the month. So every Friday at the end of the month, she was later than usual. Yeah, she'd come in before Mason's bedtime almost. The baby doesn't fall asleep without her. That's about 10 o'clock. Did she say where she was? No, she just said she was doing reports. Didn't get there in time. That's weird. You know my sister, she's very smart. She did all the math. She got it all in right away. Even helped a friend do the math. Kelly. Yeah, Aunt Kelly. She's so funny. And she always gave us candy. She was here a lot. So I hear they were talking about something important about work. Not us. I mean, they talked about the kids and how to bake pies. And nothing about work. I think the only person who came to my sister's house was Uncle James. But he's kind of a dad now. And Aunt Kelly. We've only lived here a short time. Charles got sad all of a sudden. And then he cried and ran off to his room. Yes, Liam said, closed his notebook, and walked down the hallway to James. He didn't speak to him. He only said that he knew nothing about life. Miranda. He was lying, of course, but there was no point in pressing him. On his way out, the detective caught a glimpse of the missing woman's shoes. The stilettos revealed a red clay bolt. It was quite unexpected. This kind of raw material could be only in 2 places outside the city, in a dacha settlement and in a brick factory. However, it was possible to search for it. Liam secretly stole the shoe and left. The conversation with you led nowhere. She was convinced they worked together. They didn't know each other very well recently, and she didn't tell any secrets. The other employees were no help either. Miranda had fantastic talents in the field of finance, perfectly solved any problem. The detective did not leave the feeling that everyone was hiding something, afraid of invisible retribution. The disappearance of the star employee frightened the entire staff. No one wanted to be in her shoes. Liam analyzed all the answers in his notebook and decided to follow up first with the sleuth and then with the mayor himself. But he first of all went to the head of the finance department and demanded those reports in which the girl had found an error back at the airport. But those documents disappeared without a trace. What errors did you find? Miranda was a mystery and the correct materials were useless. It's a shame that ends here, and there got cleaned up. Liam glued his mustache on in the restroom and put on a hat. In this form, he headed Zavaldi, who had come out of the administration. Kelly, smiling, walked leisurely to the house behind which Miranda had disappeared. The detective followed her. In the morning, it appeared that the famous Donaldson had disappeared. Didn't search any more offices and asked him for anyone. Jacob tried unsuccessfully to call. The phone was unavailable. The detective was missing too. Barnes woke up in the hospital. That's what it seemed to her from the white bed and bedside table. The only strange thing was that there was a desk with a laptop and a comfortable office chair near the grated window. She was alone in the room. What had happened to her? Miranda didn't remember. Had she changed as she separated? Called out the front door. Then saw on the corner of the house Jasoba strange good to her girl. Without thinking, followed the mayor, surprised by his strange behavior. He disappeared around the corner, and after that, a lapse. Only now she woke up with a terrible dizziness and weakness clicked at the door. A girl in a white robe, cap, eyes and a mask wanted food cart entered the room. Silently, she left it and walked out. Another click, and she was locked out. So it's a kidnapping, and who would want it? It was unclear. Miranda wasn't a spy or the daughter of a millionaire, but she could have been kidnapped for her talents. There was no other reason. And yet Kelly had warned Barnes had been silently fed for 24 hours. No one had spoken to her. An attempt to break out of the room was unsuccessful. At the door, she tried to rush out, but ran into the darkness, and two dark silhouettes moved towards her, and one took her like a doll by the shoulders and put her back in the ward. It was truly an intimidating sight in stature. A godlike man, clad in a special black-colored uniform, as if in a spacesuit. The next day, Amble silently deposited a mountain of folders in front of Miranda and put down one word: analysis. Report an intimidating pile. The work was not intimidating, but comforting. With enthusiasm, the young financier set to work, hoping that for her diligence and obedience she would gain her freedom. Not without reason these masks in the movies, after all. So kill when the face of the kidnappers see the heart was aching for her son. But the calculations soon distracted from sad thoughts. In 3 o'clock, the girl did a brilliant job. She entered data on the shortcomings, miscalculations of the firm of the papers that were given to her. She had even made a forward-looking profit plan. Then sat down and thought. A construction firm. The accounts were all clean. The bookkeeping was perfect. Why was she kidnapped for such an unnecessary and stupid job? They could have just hired her outright. It wasn't clean. She soon realized this when a guard deposited an envelope labeled assignment. After reading the list of requirements, Miranda was horrified. It was exactly the job she'd once been offered by a thin man with a false mustache. They had seen each other at the brickyard. Having made an appointment with her, threatening her, she refused then, emphatically could have fulfilled all the points. But that carries a hefty criminal record. She wouldn't do the job. Then something rustled at the door. Pictures of Charles and Mason entering the entryway. Today's date on the back. Signed, Be Smart. Donaldson, with a heavy head, woke up at the train station in the far corner of the ordnance. Strange that the guards hadn't woken me up until now. There was all the noise, yelling, running around. He remembered Zavelier turning the corner. And then something stabbed him in the neck. He went into the restroom, horrified when he looked in the mirror at the red dots on his neck. They were burning. 6. The injections meant the drug had injected a horse dose. He'd been taken out early, so he was on the move. That's right. But Kelly, was she really involved in the disappearance? There was no doubt about it. Examining the clothes, Liam chuckled. That was a tricky one. He was wearing a straitjacket, not a dime in his pockets. At least they left him alive. At the station, he went to the information desk. Passers-by were working away from him. He asked a ridiculous question. What city am I in? I know, but not in New York, my dear. Forgotten. I'll call someone who knows. But you, get out, you evil spirit. Playing the part, Liam ran out into the street, deftly approached from behind some guy, took off his jacket and ran away. And robbed. There's the crazy guy. There's my raincoat dripping. He took off my coat. Donaldson deftly confused his pursuers, running into all kinds of nooks and crannies. Then he broke off a little. He calmly entered the store, put on another man's coat, came out and walked briskly down the road as if he were strolling. It was necessary to find out where he was. He went to a newspaper stall and, parodying a foreigner, asked for a map of the city. Krasnoyarsk was given to him. He dug in his pocket, fumbled for the guy's bills and change. Then, as if he changed his mind, shook his head and left without the map. My head was spinning. How? How could such a thing be done? What's the date? If by car, I had to be on the road for 3 days. Why go to all this trouble? Why go to all this trouble and expense? Only a woman like Kelly would ask for a job like this. Not capable. They're ladies on wet cases, but maybe they didn't want to deprive the world of such a valuable man. The situation was unenviable. Without papers and money, there was nothing to be done. They'd give the police at least some paperwork and let them make a phone call. Liam kept muttering aloud, trying to cheer himself up. The madness of bureaucracy had begun. They searched for an escaped patient, not allowing him to make a phone call and putting him in a punishment cell. Then they called a psychiatrist. They wouldn't take a statement in the end, but they did let me make a phone call. I remember the mayor's number by heart. Liam called, explained his situation. Already had to write an official request with a photo. It was only then that Donaldson was believed. They quickly found his data in the database and issued a certificate. According to this document, Jacob sent a fee for work with transfers. Donaldson bought a train ticket. After 2 weeks of wandering, the detective returned to his hometown. It was the 3rd month since the disappearance of Miranda. In the city, the detective was in for a surprise. Miranda felt terrible. She had been working for 2 months for some gangsters who were not only laundering money, but also outright robbery. What she had to do was disgusting. The girl lived as a prisoner machine, as a robot counted, invented ingenious machinations, but to live in confinement was unbearable. Optimism and strength left. Walks did not please, and the thought of children brought endless longing. In time, their lives seemed worthless and unnecessary. When Miranda became depressed and refused to work, she would get new photos of her son and brother. One day, they even managed to get a photo of a uniformed Ambo putting Mason in a car. Fear for the children gave her resolve, but the life was slowly leaving the body. Something had to be done. A message had to be sent. The message should be encrypted in numbers, but that wouldn't work. There are enemies around, ready to sell another man's life for a penny, but you can hide a piece of paper with a note. Walking, Miranda saw high stone walls. She'd been put in some kind of abandoned hospital. You could at least try to throw an airplane over the walls. She could walk the grounds unaccompanied, just 2 bright eyes watching from afar. A light airplane might not fly. There's an empty bottle lying around. It'll do. Miranda packed, and a note written in faintly visible script. She looked back at the guard, waited for him to turn away, and tossed the bottle behind the wall. A soft, booming sound told her that the bottle hadn't broken beyond the walls of the lawn. What was out there behind those stone walls? Unknown. But it was worth a try. She'd figure it out again. What to do. But no one spoke to her except the girl who conducted the meal, the nurse. As Miranda called her, spoke to her only on distracted topics. Perhaps the kidnappers knew. Pernicious. There is long silence and loneliness. After 2.5 months of imprisonment, Miranda received a visit. Jacob met with the arriving detectives secretly at his dacha. There were surprise traders around, as if someone was secretly watching him every day. It's good to see you in good health. How was your trip? Nothing, thank you. But that's all for nothing. Do you know how it happened? I found the behavior of your accounting department suspicious. I followed her, but I woke up in Krasnoyarsk. I'm sorry to tell you, Kelly is dead. How did this happen? When? The day after you disappeared. The doctor said it was cardiac arrest. There was nothing that could be done. She had a heart defect. It's not a coincidence. Oh, this is so out of place. Look, it's professional sleuthing. It's all about financial fraud. I'm sure. Tell me, who worked before Miranda? Well, the one who overlooked the fraud. It doesn't matter. He went to his grandmother's house in the country and crashed. What are you saying? And you've been hiding it all, but you'll find out. You know, you've created a breeding ground for crime. Don't forget. Remember who you're talking to, good citizen. And Miranda. Miranda, don't you feel sorry for her? I don't think so. I'd rather she washed the floors than have a hornet's nest like this. Get out. You didn't happen to kidnap her yourself, did you? Oh, Sin City. I'll go myself. You know, I don't suspect you. I think you really love Miranda. But take a closer look at your employees and you'll discover some curious things. Tell security. Watch someone. But who? I can't talk about that yet. But Donaldson came closer and whispered, I'll tell you if I have to, but not yet. Pretend we had a bad breakup. But if you can't do anything, then go away. I don't need your services anymore. Goodbye, we won't see each other again. I'm going to Krasnoyarsk. I liked it by transit. Cushing sadly remembered the blonde shy girl, whom he loved like a daughter, took care of her only because she was so similar to his Eve. On divorce, his wife took their daughter and left for Italy. When he saw Miranda, he was stunned. She was an exact replica of his little girl. His paternal feelings for the orphan made him think of helping to support her, to give her a head start on a successful future. And this bloodhound, what a vulgarity he doesn't understand. The Barnes family was going through a sad day. But Mason wasn't crying anymore. He started calling James Papa and grew attached to him. The kids didn't want to leave the apartment and moved to the cottage. How many times did they fight? The foster father couldn't convince them. They lived in the new apartment and waited for any news. Their instincts were right. One day, the doorbell rang and they opened the door. All they found was a package. A nimble courier ran away. In the envelope was $2 million and a picture of Miranda in some room. The important thing was that she was alive. James staggered and stared at the money and could not recall a situation where instead of ransom the hostage was paid for himself. Mommy cut Mason down, sat down on the floor and clutched at the photo card. He was calmed and cowered for a long time, but he fought angrily, sat on the floor in the hallway and cried, "Mom." James and Charles stood by his side and wiped away the tears running down his cheeks. That night, Liam continued his investigation. He already knew about the photo. Charles had called him immediately and told him to come over. The photo was now in his pocket. He lit a lamp and examined it closely through a magnifying glass. Miranda looked tired and depressed. There was a laptop on the table. The walls and sheets, white window. The detective began whispering phrases aloud to organize his train of thought. There are bars on the windows, and through them you can see the street, but that doesn't give much away. But however, it looks like the walls are stone. Aha! Reflection in the laptop. Look at that scary figure standing there like the devil. It's a special forces uniform. What does that mean? We're looking for military. He took a close look at Donaldson's photo and entered all the relevant data into a notebook. He wanted a dossier on all the administration employees. In the morning, he requested that data via email. Now with the mayor, they communicated without phones, creating a secret new email on the case. Turns out 4 had served under contract, but only 1 had served in special forces. About 10 years ago. Incredibly impossible. Donaldson shrieked in amazement, wrote down all the data, and moved resolutely into administration. On the way, he more dodgy, approached the change of image. For this, he had to go to the barber shop and shave himself bald. Life for him was more expensive than hair without sultry black hair. Donaldson became a different person. He sat down on a bench outside the very building where Barnes had disappeared and began to wait. The right man walked to a car in the yard, got in it, and drove away. Liam, on the other hand, had taken care of the cab in advance. He ducked into the car, slipped a triple payment to the driver, and told him to follow cautiously. The driver ahead of him noticed the pursuer and waved slyly into the courtyard. And then he vanished. It was a failure. Now the perpetrator was in hiding, and it would be very difficult to catch him. The failure didn't upset him. Donaldson pulled a shoe out of the clay that he had completely forgotten about and headed for the brickyard. There he showed Miranda's photo at the gatehouse and learned that the girl had met with some man. But the records were no longer intact. They were deleted every month. The trail was interrupted again. Only a verbal profile of the secret interlocutor could help to find traces of the missing girl. The chances were getting slimmer and slimmer. It was like the kidnappers were playing a joke, playing with anyone who could help them find Miranda. Meanwhile, the administration was preparing a coup d'etat that could have happened much sooner if it hadn't been for Miranda taking Kelly's place. A malleable and savvy female accountant came in. But the Barnes position was not being given to anyone. Noah, the head of the finance department, handled the absence of an employee to spread out the duties to other employees. During this sorrowful, difficult time, the unbelievable happened when Donaldson was so close to almost figuring out who had kidnapped Miranda and why. The doorbell rang for the Pletnev Jr. family. Charles opened the door and froze in amazement. On the doorstep stood his sister Miranda, in person. "Charles, hello." Quietly, tearfully, she said. "What's at the front door? Let me go home." Mason where? Cured from the tetanus that seized him from joy, Charles pounced on his sister, crying loudly and laughing at the same time. "Mason, Mason, your Monty's back." Monty. The son flew in and climbed into Miranda's arms, clung to her with his little hands. "Mommy, don't go away. I'll be good anymore. My darling son, my favorite." The mother cried and kissed her son. Almost till morning, Miranda sat in the circle of her family. In her arms fell asleep Mason, Charles, inquiring details of her sister's disappearance, but she gave a bizarre version. She claimed she'd gone to visit her mother's grave. She'd gone in secret so Mason and Charles wouldn't get involved. She wanted to come back, couldn't make a quick call, lost her phone. And then she got sick and was in the hospital. She was afraid to scare her family. The doctors said the disease was incurable. "I'm sorry, Miranda, but you're lying." "Charles, don't say that. It's a miracle I came back. I thought I'd never see you again. And look at this." The girl took out the photos. She was in the village cemetery at her mother's grave. There were 2 more photos outside the house. The brother shook his head. "It's not so dark in here." "Is that the picture you sent us? And a lot of money too." Miranda spun the photo around in the white room and quietly said, "This is me at the hospital, helping them with the bookkeeping." "And the money, Miranda?" "Charles, give me a break. I only sent the photos through people I know. I don't know anything about the money. Jacob could have helped you. He felt guilty that you were alone." "Sister, I never thought you'd lie to me. We've been through it all. We kept no secrets. We told you everything. Charles, we've had our share of things, and you ran away from home without telling me. That's different. I thought it was my fault you left college. And for what? Because you worked your ass off just to get your family something to eat. Charles, my dear, let's not quarrel. I'm very tired. I love you very much. It's all right. Everything will be like it was before. We'll be together." The brother silently hugged his sister, shook his head, and said angrily, "And James didn't show up today. Isn't that strange? He always sleeps over. The day you got back, he disappeared. Don't make that up. He must be busy. We'll talk to him tomorrow. Good night." "Good night." Miranda laid Mason down beside her and let her feelings come out. She sobbed long and uncontrollably, even though she was outside the stone wall, but it made no difference. The mousetrap had slammed shut. Hopelessness recalled her whole life. There was no sleep, and both body and soul were exhausted from forgetting. Barnes closed her eyes and stopped meeting a week before her release. That day, Lisa entered the room to join her. The meeting did not go away, kindly or mentally. The guard silently cuffed her hands together and sat Barnes on the floor in a contemptuous grimace. The former classmate walked over and forcefully slapped Miranda across the face, then sat back in her chair. "But you're just the heroine of the wrong novel." "Ha ha, Lisa," the captive said with horror. "You can't be here like me where I want to talk. Look how well my daddy didn't put you up. I wouldn't even give you a bowl of porridge. You're a miserable, hungry beggar all the time. You steal to eat, and you're still miserable. Why are you so mean? What have I personally done to you?" Wrong answer. Lisa stood up and punched Miranda again. "You want to hear a funny story? Whose own father despises his daughter. And for what? But simply the child wants to live, have fun, play, live, and not sweat. My daddy, whoever he may be, I've heard of him. You don't need to know that. But he was expecting a son. And when I was born, he beat up my mother for giving birth to a daughter. And you know what? My mother died, and they'd brought me a stepmother. An evil, Greedy bitch. She couldn't stand me. I was babysat by Kelly. Kelly from Stupino. Miranda was stunned. That was her friend from accounting. Yeah, she was the one who raised me. She was friends with you on my orders. She got paid handsomely. Lisa was enjoying Miranda's reaction. It was like she enjoyed making other people miserable. My father kept up with me. He ran his own company. He's got the biggest corporation in town now, and everybody's under him with his permission. My daddy kept me on the straight and narrow. He put me through college at William, except I didn't turn out to be a financial genius. My dad watched our class, and he knew all about you and your extraordinary credentials. It pissed me off because my dad kept telling me to learn from you. I should take an example because you're so smart. Orphan of Kazan. Brothers, you're holding your mom back. You know, my father still admires you, and I'm not bad either. I discovered my talent. First time I ever came up with a plan to get you out of a game. My daddy argued about it, of course, but then he backed off and said I was the best at being sneaky. I'm like his consultant for getting rid of people he doesn't want. Haha, who'd have thought I'd have to get rid of you a second time? The first time with James worked. He's my ex-boyfriend. Loyal as a dog. Ah, sighed Miranda in wild horror. She realized she was the enemy of the family. Now to babysit her Mason. But you're a bitch. You didn't even spare the child. There is nothing sacred in your soul. It's black. I've always done everything for myself, and you're just jealous, just jealous. You grew up a princess yourself, and it's not like that. People get in your way. You're a rare bastard, worse than the last bandit. Lisa cried out and kicked Miranda in anger. Shut up. We have your family all to ourselves. James sends pictures every day. Your Mason's daddy won't hesitate to cut you up. He won't. Tears are traitorously streaming down my cheeks. I've had James all to myself from the start. It's only because of his father. There's a business here that keeps one word. And his salon will burn to the ground. You don't even have to pay any money. I came up with the ad in the paper because I knew how you carry it every day with those jobs. But I started typing up the tempting offer before you even had to scare you. You slipped away so fast. You know what the coolest thing James paid you out of his own money? I told him my dad wasn't interested in his salon. He walked like a silk, and he still walks like a faithful dog. That's how he got his first job. Daddy was happy with it the first time, even though he was sticking up for you, and then he decided to set me up. He gave me the lay of the land on those who disobeyed him. I'm a genius at manipulation. I can solve any problem without blood and gore. That's a very valuable quality. Turns out my father is now feared by all the businessmen, but no one dares even mention him. About the fact that my father is the main mafia, controlling the whole city. No one must know at the top. Only the local gang is aware, but she teaches him it's a simple firm, legitimate, unremarkable. Haha, why are you being so silent and listening to me? I'm not here for confession. We can talk though. Lisa stood up and went to the window. She turned around and said, I'm the cunning one, but you're the clever one, the genius. You got in the way again without anyone else, and you threw the mayor in the water. I saw these papers. My father and the previous finance guy spent 6 months preparing them. We had to get him out of our way. He knew too much and could have breathed too much, and his loss is small. What's a small pawn? We have bigger trump cards in our administration, and you were under the radar from the start. We would have let you get away with it. You should have kept a low profile. Now whoever gets in the way will help us. You know that. Ha, you fool. It's you, not me, who's a fool and an upstart. You'd have lived quietly and kept your head down. But we got a way to use your brains. You've made a few 1 quadrillion on you alone. You trained a lot of people for us. It was a clever little scam. Dad said no one could ever steal money so brazenly with clean accounting. You're monsters, monsters who've taken over the city. You've got to clean up the world. You're the monster now. If you don't get it right, you'll lose everything. "No, we're not gonna hurt you." But Mason could disappear in a heartbeat, and he's gone. "Live quietly. I'm being sneaky here. And you'll do as we tell you. You'll do as we tell you." Miranda was silent. There was no way out. For the sake of her son, she would be ready for any trials, even if she had to go against the law. But she had already broken the law. She had enough dirt on her without her son to put her away for years. But these subhumans have gone further, manipulating people's feelings, exploiting their desperation, driving them into desperate situations. Lisa had indeed discovered a strange and valuable talent for her daddy. She was mentally traumatized at birth, an irreparable loss, turning her into a monster. And now to business. You are now at our complete disposal. We'll go to your village together for a photo shoot. Then you'll come home and tell the story that you visited your mother's grave, that you lost your memory or were robbed. Make something up. You'll go back to work like nothing happened. But now you're gonna make the documents that will cover up the greatest fraud of the 20th century. Can you handle it? I'm sure. But remember, documents will need to be prepared in a week, and then give them to Jacob. You'll get your instructions from the online game. Register as Blood, Ella, and we'll find you. We'll put a big change in there. I feel so good. I haven't felt that good in a long time. I feel better. When I do something nasty, it makes me feel good. Pain. What pain and resentment in you, black soot all over you. Haha. Visionary, crazy. After this conversation, Miranda vainly remembered who Lisa's father was. She could not connect the surname Dodson with any businessman in the city. There were no such people in the administration either. And in fact, according to the story, the mayor's seat was intended for Lisa's father, a criminal. There was a sea of deputies and various chiefs. It was not yet known who would be appointed to the post or elected to the vote. Miranda was not familiar with the nuances of appointments. She had not heard of anyone with the last name Dodson, at least not in Jasoba's inner circle. But the last names could have been different for the daughter and the father. Miranda's back home. She could finally be near her son and brother. Nothing else matters. She will be able to make it so that she can deceive not only Lisa, but everyone behind her. But then why was the money handed over to her family? Miranda forgot to ask how much and where is that amount. Perhaps this is another way of manipulation. The money is stolen, or maybe Lisa's father is not such a monster. Stealing with the help of 1 trillion could have paid for the work. Miranda got up in the morning with a heavy head. Mason woke up and was hugging his mom. The girl decided to spend time with the kids today. Just had to tell everyone about her return. She called astonished, say Jacob, and invited him to the cafe near the house. To speak frankly, Barnes could not. She had to play the part brilliantly. Lisa convinced her that the corporation was bugging Miranda and watching her every move. The stakes were high. All forces were thrown into one last mad venture. Jacob entered the cafe with trepidation and saw the dear girl he had never expected to meet alive. His security team had long ago tracked the movements of those who would do him harm. Therefore, he was convinced that Miranda would not be left alive. Barnes' call did not fit in any way with the picture his loyal subordinates had outlined for him. Times were undoubtedly difficult. No one was completely trustworthy, not even Miranda. Suddenly back from the dead. "Hello, Miranda. And who is this good citizen?" Turned to Mason and shook his hand like an adult. "Hello, Jacob," reverently said the girl softly. "And this is Mason. He is the 5th year. I couldn't resist." The young woman hugged the mayor and then sent for embarrassed from behind the sudden impulse. Miranda recounted exactly the memorized story of the trip to her mother's house. "Miranda, are you in danger? You realize I'm not going to believe that story. I left on my own. It was a stupid thing to do. I shouldn't have scared everyone. But the day I disappeared was my anniversary." They talked a little more about little things. The disappearance was never brought up again. Let security look into it. And Donaldson, who mailed a report on the investigation. The detective had to bypass Miranda's pursuers to get her on the right side. As she left, the mayor scribbled something on the napkin. but no signs showed in the brooding. Miranda folded the white napkin into her pocket, and they went for a walk. Charles waited for the call and met them in the park. This was to be the happiest and most serene day ever. Tomorrow, Miranda would return to work as if nothing had happened, get her paperwork in order, and really start preparing the diversion. Not for nothing. However, she was called saboteurs at the very beginning. The day passed quietly. The Barnes family was able to forget about the adversity and just enjoy the time together. In the evening, Miranda tucked the children in and pulled out a napkin. The letters mailed to contact, and a password appeared on it. Barnes didn't want to take any chances, so she hid it in the kitchen and went to bed. Donaldson visited Miranda at work in the morning. They had a truly extraordinary conversation. "Hello, my name is Liam. I'm glad you were released alive and well. You're a very lucky man. To have such a talent is very fortunate. You're sure to be appreciated and cherished. I went to visit my mother's grave. Why don't you bother with these faces? Look at this. It's been written out." To the girl's great amazement, the detective pulled out a piece of paper that the captive Miranda wrote. The desperate girl was dumbfounded silent. "So why did you write that? It's your information and your request for help. How did you find this?" "But no, it's a forgery. I didn't write that. It's someone's evil joke." Miranda wrote in small print in the diary, "I'm being listened to. I can't talk." "So you still deny writing that note?" Nonchalantly, he continued, "This is not my handwriting. Can you compare it? That's good. And what do you intend to do next?" "Work. What else do I have to do to support my family?" Donaldson didn't torture the girl with long interrogations. It was pointless. There was no trace of the cheerful, optimistic girl. In front of him sat a pale, intimidated and thin creature, flinching at any rustle. The detective was not afraid now. This strange incident with the trip to Krasnoyarsk had convinced him that the mafia in the city operated in a very sophisticated way. It was a new level of gangster naughties, some unknown method, manipulating also souls, but to the last, avoiding bloody strife. Perhaps it was rather odd behavior. It was like someone was a clean white man who had not taken a sin on his soul. Donaldson's been on a stakeout for a week. Someone's been walking around looking at them for a while. He'd probably be kidnapped and taken away again soon. But he had managed to pass on all the reports to Jacob, outfoxed the invisible enemies, underestimated their rival, and the security service had very subtly investigated and confirmed all the assumptions. It was worth disappearing if he could make it in time. By late afternoon, the mayor was reported that Donaldson had disappeared without a trace, leaving his phone and all his papers at home. Jacob smirked slyly and opened the secret mail. The ringleader of the entire enterprise, simply called Joe, was sitting in a huge red leather chair. He had quite listened to the tapes of all the conversations. The true master of the city was gathering reports at his luxurious country house, more like a huge estate. Several cottages and houses belonged to him. Daughter lived in a separate 2-story house and gathered crazy parties at a stroke spent money, invited stars to perform and loitered. Nearby stood cottages that Joe gave to his visiting friends. All the property was divided up and put into the name of his daughter, his wife, and his devoted assistant and friend. Miranda, by all accounts, was behaving roughly. He had already been told that she had devised a scheme of machinations that would frame the acting head, as if such deeds the mayor turned every year. The money would do the trick. Almost everyone in the administration was on the hook. Some were blackmailed, others were bribed. Everyone whose vote could influence the mayor's choice was on Joe's side. But Donaldson was very worried. He should not have listened to his daughter and buried him in the woods, but sent him to these cities. A guard came into the hall and said, "You have a visitor, Liam Donaldson." A week later, Miranda, with the permission of Security Chief Pereverzev, handed over the false documents. They were approved. The mosquito's nose was clean. It was decided to act the same day a prosecutor's audit was held in the administration. Jacob was handed a search warrant and found that ill-fated folder. All documents were seized. planted specialists for inspection. After 4 o'clock hours of painstaking labor, all documentation was verified. Business in the administration was conducted according to the law. No charges were filed by the prosecutor's office, expressing admiration for the cleanliness and management of all financial transactions. Jacob was able to prove himself worthy of his position. It remained to be seen who had called the prosecutor's office and filed the false report. After the audit, the administration was in chaos. From fear shook all those who plotted an administrative coup. It was clear that the operation was wrapped up, ahead of invisible enemies, that the mayor himself and the team loyal to him were aware of the betrayal. What happened to the folder Miranda had so carefully prepared? Frightened to death, the girl decided that she would have to choose between the two people dearest to her. But maternal feelings of love for her son and fear moved. She decided that Jacob will soon be able to prove his innocence, to get out of this situation. And after all, an arrest wasn't life-threatening. Stubborn, Barnes wouldn't cooperate with the mayor or his investigator. May she be forgiven for that weakness. She really did a brilliant job, handed over the compromising materials in person. And an hour later, the prosecutor's office showed up. Jacob wasn't very good at financial matters. At least he wouldn't have been able to identify the forgery, like the time at the airport when he was carrying the paperwork for the deal. But Donaldson had warned that Miranda was under surveillance and like a robot working for the enemy. Miranda's file was a time bomb. On behalf of specialists he knew, the documents had been prepared and redone in advance. The folder was switched by Jacob himself. He tore up the dangerous reports and put them in a bottle, which he threw out of the window. An employee from the security service picked up and burned the compromise. Things did not end there. After the prosecutor's office, the police came to see the head of the finance department. Noah. Yes, but how dare you barge in? You're being held on suspicion of involvement in financial fraud, forgery, documents, and murder. Kelly. Pareversiv jumped up, darted his eyes, peeked out with the gallop of a wild doe, rushed to the window. He didn't have time to jump outside. A nimble young officer dived in after him, skillfully twisted his arms, and handcuffed him. The same day, the ringleader who had kept the city in fear for more than 20 years was apprehended. Donaldson of the number decided to be the first to speak to Joe. He got his address from the administration. Such a visitor astonished the host. A conversation took place between the detective and the criminal, reminiscent of a classic scene in a detective series. "Hello, William. You shouldn't trust your daughter with your business. Look how crazy her fantasies get. Greetings. Well, what can I say? Lyonia, you beat me this time. But you know you won't come back alive. Why such stupid courage? What's the matter, Mr. Goodman? I'll live for a while. How did you find me? Not now. I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. Goodbye, I'm tired." He waved to the Donaldson guard standing next to him. He flew up in a second, by the arms. Too late, Joe. Your nephew knows all about it. I sent him a letter about you. You know who else got that letter. The asshole said something to someone, and when he did, "You're lying. Finish him off." The guard led the detective away, threatening him with a gun. The master himself roared like a lion in a rage, scattered the dishes from the table, then grabbed a chair and wanted to throw it at the wall. But then the uninvited guests burst into the living room. By the time Donaldson spoke to Joe, the SWAT team was already preparing to storm the place. "William, you are arrested on suspicion of kidnapping Miranda Barnes and financial fraud and forgery. The investigation has been long and arduous, interviewing witnesses, looking for accomplices, conducting financial audits. Soon Lisa, who bore her mother's surname, was arrested. However, it was impossible to prove the involvement of many employees of the administration. Traitors flooded the city and got away with it. Miranda could not believe that everything had ended well, but she did not know the details and waited impatiently for news. Jacob allowed her to stay, realizing that it was only out of desperation that the poor little girl had decided to embark on such a horrible venture. Late in the evenings, She sat alone in the kitchen, knitting a shawl, which was soothing and gave her a chance to focus. For over a week now, she had been kept in the dark. Someone had made an evil joke, saying it was Cushing who had kidnapped her denunciation. She didn't believe it, just as she couldn't accept for a long time that her kind, pleasant boss, Noah, the source of evil, had broken the fates of many people. Confused by the speculation, Miranda heard the long-awaited doorbell one such evening. Jacob was coming to see her. "Will you let me in?" The mayor smiled. He came over, hugged her, and said quietly, "Don't be afraid. I'm not angry with you at all. Good evening." "To you, my dear young lady," Liam proclaimed loudly. "Thank you for visiting this poor, lonely orphan. My mother has been tormenting me day and night with heavy thoughts." Miranda played along, jokingly saying, "Tanya is a detective." The men handed her a potted rose, a bag of groceries, and a zebra rocking chair. For Mason, it reminded her of that carefree day when she and Kelly had gotten on the horse James had brought. The tears flowed by themselves in an endless stream. She escorted the visitors to the kitchen and closed herself in the bathroom to cry. When Barnes came to her senses, she returned to the guests. They were already in the kitchen. Taking the amazing restaurant food out of the bag, Charles came rustling in voices. "Oh, that's good." He woke up quickly and sat down at the table. "Oh, just to eat," Miranda and Liam said with glee, remembering Lisa's words. They laughed, although Barnes could not understand how the detective knew that. After the feast, they went into the living room, sending the shot glass to bed. The door was closed. About her adventures to the family, she told in general terms, not wanting to scare her brother, but all that she had been through. Donaldson took the floor. Seeing how tormented Miranda was and impatiently glared at him. "I won't keep you waiting, and I'll tell it like it is." But Lisa was clear. She was only trying to prove her worth, resentful from birth, growing up in luxury, but without love and along with her father's indifference. He bought himself from her with money. In her grew complexes, breeding, anger. In college, she simply envied the smart Miranda, the best student in the course, who was destitute but happy and loved by her mother and brother. That's what Lisa was missing. So James showed up at her behest, abused an innocent girl, scared her to death with his stalking. And the fact that Miranda would become a mom came as an unpleasant surprise. In the park, Lisa saw a happy Miranda with her son. She realized that fate favors the wretched and gives them a chance for prosperity. This capricious rich mare, who decided and this time to change everything in her favor and even help her father. "So who's her father?" "Unfortunately, it's my cousin," Jacob suddenly responded. "That's a separate story. Perhaps I'm not ready to talk about our relationship, but I don't think it would be complete if you don't outline the situation, at least." Liam demanded it. "But in general, there is nothing to talk about. I grew up with a brother who was only 5 years older than me. My parents died in an accident many years ago." Cushing was silent, turned away, but moved into himself. He continued, "William's parents raised me as their son. I studied well, had high hopes, and was going to become a military man. And then Vanya and I had an argument. He wanted to prove that he was better than me, that he would be the mayor of the city. But it so happened that I managed to graduate from the institute and got a job in the administration. And after the mayor was removed from office, the majority voted for me. It was a matter of chance that I became mayor. I just happened to be on hand, worked well and honestly. I was torn in front of her. By putting me in the mayor's chair, a lot of people got promoted. I didn't forget or hurt anybody. William took a different path. He went into business for himself first. His business was successful, but that wasn't enough. Eventually, he bribed whoever he needed to get elected as a deputy. I helped him and got him a job in the administration. He became my first deputy, so he could claim the position if I was removed." Judah whispered to Miranda, "What about Pereverzev?" "Well, that's just a greedy and unprincipled scumbag like the others. He was simply on retainer, receiving a monthly fee for some services. He and my father have been plotting a coup for a long time. Only Miranda cleaned up the mess and put things in extraordinary order. That's not all. Zoshchenko softly told Donaldson with affection, looking at Barnes. And about your place in this case, want to know? Yes, of course, blushed the girl for the first time at looking at the detective, handsome and energetic man. You first spoiled all the plans and ruined the diversion by pointing out the mistakes there at the airport when you sat in the puddle. And then William figured out a way to turn the case in his favor. He locked you up in one of the houses he owned. You were tricked into going for a walk. The rest of the rooms were bricked up, creating darkness in the hallway. The site of the house was filled with clay and sand. They didn't even bother to paint the walls white. It looked like an old house, and the stone walls were his thing. He faked all his houses to keep them out of the public eye. Security helped me track down Pereverzev. He was meeting with Dnipro. It wasn't hard for the seniors to find the address. I wandered around his mansions for a long time, until I came across a bottle with a note. As the guards had not found it, I found it behind the house, far from the gate. And what was in the note? Jacob perked up. Well, Miranda wrote her details, and that she was being held by force in the house. It's incredible what you found. You're quite the detective. Tell me, what about Kelly? How was she involved in this case? Kelly was in the house to babysit Lisa, and then Cushing got her a job in administration. She was the most dangerous, and his most loyal spy. But her death was really an accident. Was it accidental? Miranda said quietly and put her hand in Donaldson's palm. Soon Miranda and Liam were married. Jacob, on the other hand, waited for his wife and daughter and was also happy. He never treated Miranda as a woman. For him, she remained a little unhappy girl. So similar to his daughter, Barnes took a position as head of the financial department and entered the institute. No charges were ever brought against Lisa. The girl has not learned any lesson from the situation. Barnes is the source of all her misfortunes. One day, Miranda came out of work and saw Lisa leading her son around the corner of the building. Subscribe and click the bell. Miranda dreamed of her only son having a rich life. She herself raised him alone, working 3 jobs to support him adequately. She had always thought that the more she invested in him, the greater the return. No one had ever canceled old age, and she didn't want to grow old in poverty. Here, graduated from the institute, Mom will try to find you a decent job. And there, and the bride you fall. Mom, what kind of bride? Besides, you know I love Lisa, and we're planning to marry her. Don't be silly, Lisa. I don't want you to live like your father and me. He couldn't stand the poverty and he drank himself to death. Well, that's where he belongs. He's always been a weakling. You're a strong boy. So I'm asking you to take a more realistic view of life and not get down on yourself. I'll find you a rich bride. I'll do anything for that. By the way, I've already found you a job. It's a very big firm. Robert, you've probably heard of him. He's got branches all over the country. He's a very rich man with a daughter. She's handicapped. She was in a car accident with her mother when she was a kid. Her mother died, but her daughter survived, crippled. But that's okay. This is your chance, son. You don't have much time left to study. So right after the institute, you'll arrange everything there. Your job is to please the management. And then we'll get closer to our daughter. Mom, are you serious? Is that how you want me to live with a cripple? You think it's wrong not to live with a cripple, but to become a rich man. Believe me, this Robert would do anything for his daughter. He loves her very much and will do anything to make her happy. And he'll raise you up so you won't need anything. And I'll be by your side as always. I'll help you with advice if you need it. And your Lisa won't go anywhere. She'll be waiting. Besides, you can do anything for her. You'll buy her an apartment. And you'll go out with her. Or we'll think of something else. Stephen didn't really like Mom's plan. He planned that right after the institute, he and Lisa would start living together, rent an apartment, get a job, and then we would get married. But Mom, as always, decided everything in her own way. Lisa, my mom got me a job at a very big firm. Anyway, so far, our plans are a little off. Couldn't your mom get me a job too? I want to make good money too. I don't know, I'll talk to her. She's the one who made a deal with someone she knows, and she said she'd do her best. Well, you're my mother. You know, I know a lot of people, so she made a deal. Well, I'll be sure to ask about you. I'd love to work together. I'd always have you in my sights. You know how much I love you. I'd like that too. But I think your mom's got other plans that I can't get into. You know my mom. She wants what's best for me. But don't worry. We'll always be together. You'll see. I believe you. I just don't think it's going to be the same. Your mom is nice to me, but I can see she wouldn't want me to be your wife. A woman can sense that. No matter what I do, she doesn't like it. So I don't think we'll be together. Stephen was silent, but he realized he was wrong. His mom has completely different plans, and she really wants her son to become a rich man. She always told him as a child that when he grows up, she will do everything to ensure that they do not need anything. In fact, he didn't mind it himself. Didn't a rich life ever hurt anyone? Miranda met up again with her friend whom she had known for a long time. So, Sashenka, is there a place for my son at Robert's company? Miranda, I told you I'll do everything. Your son will work there. You can count on me. Of course, the position is modest, and the salary is small. But you understand, no one will hire him for a good job right away. And if he is clever, and I hope that your son is like you, he will not stay long in this place. He will quickly climb the ladder. Stephen, I think he'll do the right thing. He's a capable and intelligent boy. Listen, Miranda, as far as I know, you've known the Robert family for a long time. I heard he has a daughter with a disability. Yeah, it's a terrible tragedy. Only one daughter left alive. I don't know what happened there. I came to work there when it happened. You know, the kind of people they try not to talk about. But Robert adores his daughter, dusts her off. Kelly herself is a good girl, modest, kind, smart. She's graduating from college too. And most likely, will ask her father to take her to his work. She's cool about the fact that she can't walk. She uses a wheelchair. I mean, what's the big deal? She's got security around her all the time. So they help her, and there's no problem. As far as I know, her father didn't want her out of the house at all. He was afraid she'd be laughed at. You know how cruel young people are these days. But she insisted. And she made friends. In general, the girl lives like all of us. In fact, how else? With that kind of money and a colleague, you can live in peace, not like ordinary people. I understand, Miranda. There are so many different prosthetics nowadays. You see, she can actually get back on her feet. Plus, with their money, I don't think it'll be a problem. That's the thing. She can't have prosthetics. After the accident, she has serious problems with her body, with her heart. Trouble and stress is contraindicated. They've already checked everything. They've been everywhere, even to Germany. But everywhere the doctors said that she can't stand on prostheses. Her heart can't take it. Poor girl, so unlucky. She's not poor. Believe me, she's doing fine. Unlike you and me, even though we're healthy people, some people are lucky to be born with a golden spoon in their mouth. In our country, you have to work like hell to keep from starving. And if, God forbid, you get sick, it's a nightmare. There's not enough money for anything. Why are you so angry today? My Cindy happens to be asking for a new cell phone. Do you know how much it costs? So we had a fight about it. I'm raising her just like you raised your son. Where do I get that kind of money? I'm lucky with him in that sense. I've been explaining to him since he was a kid about the war and how hard it is for me. So he never asked me for anything. I guess you didn't talk to Cindy, and now she's all grown up and thinks you don't give her enough. So tell her to go to work, and she can buy her own cell phones. That's easy for you to say. She's a student of mine. How can I send her to work? I put up with it, She's doing the best she can. Sometimes I just don't have the strength. I understand. It's always like that with kids. It's okay. She's an adult. She'll soon realize everything, and better yet, she'll marry a rich man, and she won't know your dinner, and you won't be left out of pocket. You know what I mean? Oh, if only it were that simple. Don't be ridiculous. Cindy, you've got a girl with a college education. It's all in your hands. Besides, you know rich people. I never thought of that until now. I don't understand. Take her to different receptions, and she'll be noticed. Miranda left her friend satisfied with the result. She had learned everything she wanted for her son. For his sake, she would do anything. Her boy shouldn't need anything. He'd had enough bad luck in life, but now they'll be fine. The main thing now was that he should graduate. Kelly was sitting in her room as usual, reading a book. She had heard that her father was back from work, but he hadn't come to her room yet, so he was still busy. As soon as he is free, then they will definitely have dinner together like they always do. True, she had a serious talk with her father tonight, even though he was always trying to avoid it. Today she was determined to talk to him. As time went on, her father didn't show up, so she decided to go downstairs herself to ask him when they would have dinner. Everything in their house had been made for her, so that she could be in the rooms unobstructed and move about quietly, somewhere to pray. She found her father in the study, sitting at his computer, writing something. "Hi, I thought you'd forgotten about me. Turns out you're still working." "I am, daughter. My analytics department's all pissed off. They fired the hell out of everyone. They don't check at all. It's terrible what I pay their salaries for. I have to double-check everything in the field myself." "Can I see it?" "Sure, come here." Kelly rode up in her wheelchair, looked in her father's computer. It was a mess. She immediately told him where it needed fixing first thing. And then she looked at her father with a satisfied look. "Dad, I've told you several times, let me help you. Besides, I like it myself. Take me to you after the institute, and believe me, you will never have problems with the analytical department again." "I see, Kelly. I just wanted to save myself the trouble. You're a smart girl, and everything I'm doing right now is for you. I actually wanted to send you overseas to get some rest. Travel for work. You'll have time for that. But I'm watching you run things now. I feel like I need your help more than ever. I'm really glad you finally realized that. Now let's go to dinner. Not too hungry. They've been waiting for you for a long time. Come on, we're good. I'm pretty hungry myself, but you saw it. I had to figure out what they'd done to me. Dad, they don't check your data at all. That's a big mistake in analytics, but I already realized that. Then you're gonna take over the department because I've got enough work to do. I'll send the data to your laptop for now, but when you graduate, you come straight to me. I'll even set up an office for you. I'll even have an office set up for you." Okay, Dad, now go to the kitchen, or our Aunt Clara will be nagging again, because dinner is probably already cold. "You're right, that's how our Aunt Clara is. It's best not to mess with her. But I think you stood up for your father, because I'm the one who's going to get the blame." "Good. I have a way with her. I know how to calm down our angry Aunt Clara. What about us? You'll see." They walked to the living room, where the table had long since been set. For as long as Kelly could remember, they always ate dinner in the living room. It was their family's custom. In fact, she had nothing against it. "We're waiting for dinner," shouted the father, and looked at his daughter cheerfully. Soon, Slaga came in, grumbling that she had cooked everything a long time ago. Everything had cooled down long ago, and she didn't get up to reheat her masterpieces 20 times. "It's all your fault, Robert. Your job comes first. What am I supposed to do? I work hard. I cook, and you don't care about my labor. You're about to have a warming meal. You're pretty tasty. I'm always talking about what I've been pulling. This time I held up my dad, but I proved to him that in his job I'm indispensable. He's agreed to let me run his analytics department. So you can be happy for me." "Kelly, So you're gonna work with your dad now, just like you wanted. Oh, that's great. Now, without further ado, let's eat dinner. Let's make sure everyone eats. I worked so hard tonight. I think it's delicious. You always make everything delicious. I promise my daughter, and I won't be late for dinner like this again. Okay, I believe you. Kelly, if you say it, it means it. The father looked meaningfully at his daughter, and she smiled her beautiful smile. How much like her mom was she? Especially when she smiled like that. How are things going at the institute? You're not seeing anyone. I've just noticed you've been different lately. Did something happen to you? No, I'm fine. I just really wanted to work for you, you know. I'm almost done with school. And then it just felt like there was no point. And then you were always against me working with you. I was really depressed about it. And I felt like you didn't need me. Don't be silly. But how could I not need you? I just wanted you to get some rest. Well, I've explained. But if my daughter wants to work, I'm happy to do it. So don't worry, it's fine. While you're still getting things done, like I said, I'll get your office ready so you're comfortable. But you're welcome there. I look forward to seeing you with great pleasure. Robert was pleased. He saw that he couldn't do without his daughter's help. But I didn't think his daughter would want to work for his company. After all, she's disabled. He was always afraid for her. It was especially scary to see how people looked at her with some pity, some anger. And his heart always jumped out in anger. But now he saw that his daughter had grown up, that she herself perfectly coped with all the hardships. And the fact that she is constantly in a wheelchair does not bother her at all. Besides, as she recently told him that the strength is not in the legs, but in the head. She's right. The next day, he gave the order to prepare the office next to his office. Many people began to murmur, realizing that he was doing all this for his daughter. Robert's secretary at lunchtime told her friends in HR in confidence, "Now we're gonna have a handicapped person working with us. Her daddy's going to arrange everything for her. Why do we need her here to feel sorry for her?" You shouldn't say that, Vika. Kelly is a beautiful girl, and she's very smart. So enough with the slander and the talk. You better get on with your business. Besides, if your boss finds out, you won't last long. He adores his daughter. It's not her fault. What happened? It's nobody's fault. Besides, the girl grew up without her mother, who died in that unfortunate accident. So why feel sorry for her? She has everything. They don't need anything. Besides, she's used to it. She's probably a rich girl with a daddy like that. Plus, she's handicapped. I imagine Anna's all out of sorts and said, "Stop talking, and then you're on your own. If you don't stop talking, you'll be out of a job." You got me. Kelly sat on the porch of the institute, waiting for her friend Christina. They had been friends since first grade. She told her father about her then. He, of course, made inquiries, said that her friend's family was good, that her father was an engineer and her mother was a pediatrician. Christina's father was having a little trouble at work at the time, and Robert helped him. This brought the two girls very close together, and they were now going out together all the time. Kelly also wanted her father to take her friend to work with him, but she didn't know how to convince him. "Kelly, you've been waiting a long time." "Sorry, I was just picking up my notes from Bobrov. I'm sick of taking them into eternity and then having to run after them. I need to get them back." "Why are you so happy? Did something happen?" "Yeah, I talked to my dad yesterday, and he wants me to work with him. I finally talked him into it. I haven't talked about me yet, but I think we'll find something for you." "Maybe you shouldn't, Kelly." "What? What if I can't handle it? And there's a lot of things we're grateful to you for. If it wasn't for you, I might have been expelled my sophomore year. You realize I'm weak in a lot of subjects. You're the smart one. I'm mediocre. My mom said it was a miracle I got in. I should have gone into teaching. That's my limit. Don't be silly. Your mom can be wrong sometimes. She's a doctor, but she doesn't believe in you. And that's her fault. Okay, Christina, let's go home. Aunt Clara's baking fascinated today. She told me to make sure you came. And I'd love to. But my mom's gonna be mad again. She always does. When I praise Aunt Clara's food, she starts nagging, saying that of course, if she had as much time as your nut, she'd make a masterpiece. But Dad and I know our mom can't cook at all. I see you guys are having fun. I think if my mom were alive, we'd have the same thing. Kelly, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. I mean, I'm telling you about my family, and you're sad. But I'm not being mean. I know it's okay. It's just something I said. Did you go to Christopher the driver? He's waiting for us. Listen, Kelly, this Christopher of yours, he's single. I keep meaning to ask you, but I keep forgetting. He's not. Why do you want to know? Do you like him? I like him a lot. I like guys like that a lot. I mean, look at him, like he's on the cover of a magazine. I didn't know you liked guys like that. Do you want me to introduce you guys to him? Oh no, that's okay. Wouldn't you look at someone like me? You're being modest again. Chidge. Christina, you knew you had very low self-esteem. You can't do that. You need to rethink that. They got in the car and drove to Kelly's house. Christopher, then only Christina needs a ride back home. She lives far away. That way we can study for exams together. Study late. What do you say, Kelly? I'll do it. I'll drive her. Does he call you by your middle name? Did Christina giggle? That's what Daddy requires. The girls didn't speak again on the road. Kelly thought about what Christina had told her. She didn't know how to introduce her to Christopher, and thought that her friend would probably have a chance at that when he took her back home. It was just that Kelly herself had never had a boyfriend, and she didn't know how to get acquainted at all. She decided for herself that she was going to be alone, because she really realized that no healthy guy would want to be crippled. There were certainly some guys at the Institute who picked on her, but she could see that their interest was not in her, but rather in her father. Miranda glanced at the time and frowned. The whole sun was late again, and she understood the reason why he was with his girlfriend Lisa again, and what he found in her that he just couldn't break up. It's not right. It's not his time. It was a shame that no matter how she explained it to her son, he didn't listen to her at all. Once again, he should have been home long ago, but he was still gone. Finally, she heard the front door slam. The son threw his keys on the nightstand and started to develop. Hi, Mom. Why are you so glum? And you're still asking? We agreed with you that you after the Institute immediately go home. But I see you don't care about my requests. You were with your Lisa again. Mom, I told you that I love her and that she's the girl I want. I thought you agreed with me. And we agreed that I would do whatever you told me to do. But she would always be there for me. You understand, son, the minute you start courting Kelly, her father's gonna start making inquiries about you. He's gonna find out everything. And that's where we're gonna get in the way. So think again. Talk to her and tell her that you need to break up for a while. But she has to understand. Okay, Mom, I'll talk to her. But you realize it's not as simple as telling her I have to marry another woman. How can I tell her it's all about the money? She wouldn't understand. She'll understand perfectly well. I've seen her, and I know this type of person. She'll do anything for money. So you can tell her. You'll see she'll agree to anything. Just don't tell her the truth. You can't trust women. Just say that you have to hit on a rich girl just to get a good position. Because if you tell the truth, everything will fall apart. Robert will be reported immediately, and we'll be left with a broken trough. And do you realize then that we'll lose time? Smart boy, and not only smart, but very handsome. So I think you can do it. The important thing is that Lisa doesn't get in your way. So weigh everything and think about what's more important to you. And also think that you're going to have a lot of Lisas. There was no Stephen. What to say to his mother? He himself had long dreamed of having a car. He liked the branded things he saw in the store that were out of his reach. Besides, who doesn't want to live rich? Even if it means marrying a coworker. Mom's so sure this girl will even want to talk to him. What if she has a boyfriend? What if she's happy? Here I am with my suggestions. I checked. Son, he's single. But you're right, Kelly. The girl's very smart, so don't expect her to jump into your arms right away. You think it's that simple. No. My dear, you're gonna have to woo her. And you're gonna have to woo her hard. You know what I mean? Because she's not going to throw herself at you right away without even thinking about it. So you're saying she might refuse me? Naturally. You're not as smart as I thought you'd be. You think if something's wrong with her, she should come running to you. No. She's been smartly provided for since she was a child, never denied anything. It comes up, you'll believe it, she won't even pay attention to you. It's all up to you. If you want her to fall in love with you, you'll do whatever it takes. Well, you know what I mean. Because I've done everything for you. Now it's your turn. And please don't upset me. He didn't see that coming. For some reason, in his fantasy, everything was so simple. He sees Kelly, she sees him, and she agrees to marry him. And then he goes back to living the life he wants. But it's not that simple. Like his mom just told him, he didn't say anything. He went to his room to think for a while. First of all, he decided to take a closer look at Kelly. His mother had told him about her a long time ago, but he always thought it was nothing. But his studies were coming to an end, and that meant his mother's plan had to be put into action. He opened his laptop to look at the pictures of Robert and Kelly. He was very surprised that she turned out to be quite a nice girl with a very beautiful and gentle smile. For some reason before, when he heard about her, he thought she must be very ugly. He looked online at her pictures and thought it wasn't all bad. She's pretty and seems very naive, so it wouldn't be hard for him to get to know her better. Plus, he'll know what she likes and how to approach her. Mom's right about Lisa. You have to break up with her for this kind of thing, so she doesn't screw things up later. He regretted telling her about her plans, but he was smart enough not to go into details, and he has to have a serious talk with her tomorrow. But he still needed an approach to her that he couldn't think of. He went to Lisa's page to admire his girlfriend. When he saw that she had pictures of their mutual friend John, he didn't like that very much. He decided that this would be the reason for their breakup. In the evening, when he sat down to have dinner with his mother, he saw that she was waiting for a response from him. I understand everything. Tomorrow I'm breaking up with Tanya. Believe me, everything you've done for me won't go to waste. So you can count on me. Thank you, son. I knew you were a smart boy. Believe me, I'm not getting any younger every year. And that's why I want to live a normal life, thinking you'll do well. The next day at the institute, a happy Lisa came up to Stephen to hug him and, as usual, then dip him on the cheek. But he dodged, grabbed her hand and took her aside. Why didn't you tell me that when you talked to John? I realize we are friends, but I didn't think his picture would be on your social media page. Why didn't you tell me? So it's just a photo. Stephen, what's wrong with you? Would you like it if I had a picture of your friend? What would you say to me then? Stephen, but I didn't think it would make you so angry. I don't even remember when I had it there. But I felt awful yesterday when I saw it there. I also felt bad when I saw your heart emoticons. How do you explain that? That's how the press makes jokes before. You know, John. And believe me, I didn't even pay attention to it. I don't believe you. You're obviously enjoying this. So just so you know, I don't like it at all. You got me. They nodded anxiously, glancing at Stephen. He needed her to be completely oblivious to that recent conversation when he had told her that his mother wanted to get him a good job. Just at that moment, John walked up to them and playfully pinched Lisa's waist. It was just what was needed. Stephen looked at Lisa with a frown. He didn't say hello to his friend, but silently turned and walked away. He smiled to himself, realizing that it had turned out even better than he had intended. John caught up with him, grabbed his elbow, and said, "What are you doing, friend? I just did it without a second thought. Believe me, I would never come between you and Lisa." There she is crying. Why don't you explain what happened? I don't have to. So you stay out of it. Is that how you're raising her or what? Tell me honestly, are you my friend or not? Of course I'm your friend. I'm always there for you, and you know it. Now, Lisa cheated on me, and you'd better stay out of it. Got it. How did Lisa cheat on you? There's no such thing. What's the matter, Stephen? It's smudging. So let her suffer a little. It's good for her. Don't feel sorry for her. I'm afraid she's gonna turn on you. She's not as saintly as I thought she was. They change guys like gloves. I got proof. But I'm not gonna get involved in this mess. So you're just gonna have to take my word for it. I wasn't expecting that. All right. Well, whatever you say, I'm always on your side. How upset are you? What do you think? We've been together for so many years. It's a shame to know your girlfriend's not faithful to you. I'm right. It's not nice. Well, that's okay. I'm looking at the world in a more cheerful way. We'll graduate soon. We'll go to work, and everything will be fine. There will be more beautiful girls. I'm right. Stephen nodded, and they went to their classes. True, he felt a little bad at heart that he had done that to Lisa, but he had no other choice. Now he realized that his mother was right about many things, and he would have a lot of Lisas like that. And now he had to get ready to study. There wasn't much left. The first day of work at Robert and Stephen's company, he didn't expect such a big deal. Only now he realized how rich this man was. Very smart. Mom is right, of course. If he married Kelly, he would have everything. But he also realized that it wouldn't be so easy to marry Kelly. It's all in his head, as easy and simple as he thought it would be. Now he'd seen the seriousness of it, realized it wasn't that easy. Robert wouldn't give up his daughter. He would still have to fight for her, but he was not afraid of that, because he understood perfectly well that as soon as he became his son-in-law, all doors would open for him. That's exactly what he needed Mom to do. I didn't see that one coming, of course. Listen, thank you so much for getting me this job. I wouldn't have gotten a job there on my own. I'm thrilled. Now I know exactly what you mean. Well, Mom's got good advice. Listen to me carefully, son. It's all up to you now. Work hard to get noticed. Then another piece of good news. His daughter will work there too. I mean at this company. So that makes your job easier. But it's up to you. She'll be working there too. What's she gonna do? I don't know yet. A friend of mine told me today. The office is ready for her. I already know who she'll be working there. In the meantime, why don't you mind your own business? I hope it works out for you. It's working, really. Absorbed Stephen. He loved what he was doing. Plus, he was noticed as an excellent worker, and within 3 months he was promoted. Of course, not as big as he would have liked, but in 3 months to rise, even if only one step, it was already a result. You're good, son. You're a smart boy. I'm glad I raised a son like you. We're gonna make it. Did you find out about Kelly's? 'Cause I've been working there a long time, but I've never seen it. Have you ever seen Robert? No, not yet. He doesn't come into our offices there. And there's nothing for us to do in his office. So we're just going about our business. That's right. His daughter is with him all the time. So it's up to you. Boy, you try and you will succeed. And Stephen tried. He did everything he could to get one more step up to where the big money of the connection was, where he could finally feel like a more important person. Kelly arrived home, and the first thing she did was head to her father's office. She wanted to talk to him about her friend who would also like to get a job. Christina had called her in the evening and told her that her mom was sick, that she needed a large sum of money. But she can't do anything because where she works, the pay is very low, and she probably can't afford the medicine. Dad, I can come in. It's okay. No, daughter, you know you never bother me. I see something's wrong. Trouble at work. No, I'm fine there. It's something else. Remember Christina, who we've been friends with since college? Well, she's got family problems. I'd really like to help her, but I need money. A job or both. You can hear me out. So tell me, my aunt is very sick. She needs medicine. You know very well how expensive it all is. Christina and my father are working. but they don't have enough. They need treatment now, so I'm offering to help with money and work. She's a smart girl. Trust me, she can handle it. Let's help them, Dad. How can I say no to you? I'll talk to my deputy tomorrow. I think he'll take her in, get her a job. But don't worry about the money. I'll wire the money to her account. Just give me her card number and the amount. So don't worry about your mom. We'll help her. Kelly looked at her father with pride. She always liked how he was quick to solve problems. She had always dreamed that if she ever fell in love with a man, he would have to be like her father. Thanks, Daddy. I'll call her right away. Kelly dialed Christina's number and was very happy when she answered right away. So, send me your card number and the amount you need for your mom's treatment. Tomorrow come to our company and your father will give you a job there. Everything will be fine. Don't worry. Well, it's not right. When I told you about this, I didn't mean for you to help me with money. Believe me, I'm not friends with you for money, but only because it's a very good person and a great friend. Christina, don't worry. I know how you feel about me. I know you're not friends with me because my last name is Robert. So why can't I help you? Just because I can. I think if you were me, you'd do the same thing. Wouldn't you? Thank you, Kelly. You're the most wonderful friend I've ever had on Cindy. I'll get my mother's meds today, and I'll come to your company tomorrow. Believe me, I will do everything I can not to let you down. I'll do my best. A new girl came to the company. Stephen looked at her with interest, and also thought that she wasn't bad with herself, and that he wouldn't mind hitting on her. But then a coworker whispered to him that this very girl, a close friend of Kelly, she's her friend. I never would have guessed that, because I always thought that people like Kelly had unusual friends. She's just a simple girl, and she's cute too. They've been together since college. I'm having some problems in my family. So Kelly hustled up, told her father to bring her here. Well, it's up to them, but be careful with her. And there's no guarantee she won't rat you out to her bosses. You know what I mean. She's on the outs with them. But Stephen had other plans, and he decided to put those plans into action. Hi, my name's Stephen. I see you're new here. So if you have any problems, I'd love to help you out. You would. It seems like nobody cares about anybody here, and they look at me like I'm an enemy of the people. To be honest with you, he doesn't really like people who come in through favors. We were told you were the prodigy of our boss's daughter. That's why you're being treated like this right away. If you're nice to everyone, you won't see it go away anytime soon. Okay, thank you so much for explaining. Although Kelly did warn me that I would be treated this way at first. She's very smart. And when she says something, she's always right. How long have you two been friends? We met in college and have been inseparable ever since. I'll never forget the first time I saw her. She was so confused, and no wonder. People really looked down on her, like they'd never seen a person in a wheelchair before in their life. I didn't know who she was then, and I just felt sorry for her. Well, how do you walk? I drove her around. She was happy to accept my help. She's a lovely person. She doesn't look like the daughter of rich parents, and that's what I liked about her right away. She has a humanity that a lot of healthy people don't have. I read somewhere that disabled people are evil because they don't look like normal people, but Kelly proved otherwise. I've never met anyone so bright. Okay, I'm probably just repeating myself. It's just that I really do love her a lot. Now I have to get to work. If there's a problem, I know I can come to you, Stephen. Stephen nodded, went to his workstation. He was interested in their conversation. He was learning a lot about Kelly again. Although the fact that she was a kind and smart girl, he had heard many times before. When lunch came, Stephen stopped by Christina's to invite her in and in between to show her the dining room that was in the building. And it was made especially for the employees. The food there is excellent. I've never had food like this in a restaurant. Come on, I'll show you where it is. I'm sorry, Stephen, but I'm going up to Kelly's. She's so busy working sometimes, she forgets to eat, which, unfortunately, is not normal. so I'll try to get her to eat. If I do, I'll meet you in the cafeteria." Stephen left, and Christina folded neatly all the papers in order on the desk and went to Kelly. Her office was next to her father's, and in fact, the regular employees did not go up there unnecessarily. She knocked on the door and heard Kelly's voice. "Kelly, hi. It's me. Let's go win. I'm starving. Besides, I've been told about your canteen so much that if we don't go, I'll starve to death. It's in your office." "No, you don't want to do that." "Of course we're going. I just haven't been going alone. I'd love to go with you, my friend. Tell me about your new place. No one's hurting you. Everything's fine. Don't worry about me. Besides, you know I'll never let anyone hurt me. I can always stand up for myself. I met this guy. Well, actually, he came up to me, offered to help me, said that if I do not understand something, I can safely turn to him. He's very handsome, by the way. Let me show him to you. I'm glad you're doing well. And I'd be really happy if you could make something work with this guy." "Not a chance. Guys like them will never look at me. He'd rather look at you. Don't be silly. I've told you 100 times. You're a very pretty girl, so stop underestimating yourself." Stephen saw them as soon as they entered the dining room. Christina gestured Kelly over to the table in a familiar gesture. In doing so, she pushed back a chair to make her friend comfortable. The dining room became very quiet. Everyone looked only at Kelly. She, on the other hand, paid no attention to anyone. Stephen was also looking at her for the first time, and to give him credit, he liked her in person. She was really a very beautiful girl. Against her background, Christina looked like a pale moth. The friends were talking quietly about something, not paying attention to anyone. The waiter immediately ran up to him and immediately took the order. Christina was quietly telling Kelly something, and then she turned and looked at him with her big blue eyes. He realized that Christina must have been telling her about him at the moment. He smiled quietly and nodded. Kelly nodded back at him and looked away. Christina smiled and listened to what Kelly told her, then turned to Stephen and made an inviting gesture. Stephen didn't refuse. Every opportunity to get close to Kelly was important to him now. He grabbed his tray with his order and walked over to them. "Hello, Kelly Robert. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Stephen, but I think Christina already told you that. You can just go ahead." "Kelly is a pleasure, Stephen, and I'm glad you didn't leave my friend alone. I know how newcomers are treated here, so thank you again for your support. Also, you didn't know who Christina was or who I was. That tells me you're a kind, sensitive person." Stephen didn't bother to tell Kelly that as soon as Christina walked into the office, he had already been told all about her. Why dissuade him? Besides, Kelly's praise was very nice to him. "It's nothing. I didn't do anything wrong. Besides, Alice is a girl of character, and as it seemed to me, she doesn't need help or protection." The dinner passed in a friendly atmosphere. They talked quietly. And then when they finished, they agreed that now only 3 people would have lunch. When they got home, Stephen joyfully approached his mother and told her that he had met Kelly today. "How? Really? How did that happen?" "We had a new girl over. Turns out it was a friend of hers, and she introduced Kelly to me in the cafeteria today." "Well, more like she introduced me to her. Whatever, Mom. Now she recognized me. And I recognized her. I don't think there's any rush. But I'm gonna take it slow." "Wrong, son. Just take your time. All in good time. Remember, you're gonna make it. You better tell me how arrogant she is." "Come on, Mom. She's a normal girl. It's, you know, pretty cute. Not my type, of course, but I was actually pleasantly surprised. She's not a freak, and I think I can go after her now. There are some complications, though. She doesn't trust anyone, I think, because she realizes that she's handicapped and what a normal guy doesn't need. It's my job to prove to her that none of this is true, that it's just her speculation. I'm right. You're right, son. You're always right. Look at the situation, and most importantly, remember that you You got to keep your eyes on her, thinking only of her, no other girls. I hope you didn't compliment that friend of hers, because I know you. She'll tell her Kelly, and then it's all gone. Don't worry, Mom, I did the right thing. I went over there just to help her. We had a conversation. Nothing too much. All I had with her was work. Besides, I didn't like her. She's kind of pale and not really my type either. So you don't have to worry too much about it. Good, son. I'm glad you're a smart kid. I hope the ice is finally breaking. In a little while, you'll be the most powerful man in the world. In fact, who do you want to be? But the key is patience. Stephen agreed with his mother. He would have to be very careful not to scare her off. But he knew he would succeed. It was not without reason that he had come to this for so long. Kelly was in her room. She had gone to bed early tonight because she was feeling a little under the weather. Not good with her for the first time. Her heart was cramping, and blood was spurting whether the hearth was the same or not. And it even seemed like she had a fever at first, but she knew her body well and saw that she didn't have a fever. What was happening to her? She didn't understand. This had never happened to her before, and it frightened her. The image of Stephen kept running through her mind. No matter what she did, he was always in her face. Had she fallen in love? No, it couldn't be. Not with her. They'd been talking for 2 months. Always the three of them. He, she, and Christina. True, in the evenings he wrote to her. They talked about different topics, and she realized that she was very interested in him, and as it seemed to her, he was interested in her. And yesterday he invited her to the park. She had been there a long time ago, as a child, when my father took me there. But she didn't like it there, because there were children looking at her, and she looked at them and envied the way they ran. Her father offered to take her for a ride too, but she refused. She didn't want everyone looking at her, and Stephen had offered to let her go. She didn't expect him to do that. Are you serious right now? Kelly, it sounds like I'm kidding. You're what? But you realize that I am. Kelly was going to say handicapped, but Stephen interrupted her. Oh, come on. This is the most beautiful girl in the world to me. You're beautiful, you're sweet, you're kind, you're very smart, and I really enjoy talking to you. So why can't I ask you out? And Kelly said yes. Her malaise must have been exacerbated by the fact that she was anxiously awaiting the results. Her father, as usual, never let anyone near his daughter. And if there were people near her, he would make inquiries about them. Kelly never said anything about the games, and if he did ask, she simply replied that they socialized as colleagues. She then told him that Christina had introduced them, and then when she was asked out and had to tell her father, because she couldn't just leave the house without him knowing. She remembers that then as a teenager she asked her father what was the purpose of this insurance. You see, daughter, I'm really worried about you, and I think you know that enough to understand what I'm doing. No, it's not enough for me. Remember when you once told me that we should always tell each other the truth? Well, now I see that you're lying to me. And then my father told me that the accident when her mom died and she became an invalid was faked. But he couldn't prove anything at the time. But after that, he guarded his daughter like the apple of his eye. So she had to tell her father about the date. He was surprised. He didn't say anything, just nodded. And she realized that Stephen would be scrutinizing. She resented that, of course. But on the other hand, she understood who they were, and she'd seen how people sometimes went crazy over money. She thought her father wouldn't come home this time, but she was glad when she heard the sound of a car pulling up. Soon he knocked on the door of her room. You're awake. I'm glad you waited for me, but don't keep me waiting. Can you please tell me what you found out about Stephen? Well, I didn't find out much. He has no father. His mother brought him up. He's never had a criminal record and has never been involved in anything bad. In general, a positive character, which, frankly, scares me a lot. But I guess the mom did her best. She didn't want her son to get involved in different stories. Actually, she did well, did the right thing. Studying at the institute, met with a girl, but then they broke up. As it turned out, He could not tolerate the fact that she cheated on him. But according to the girl, this never happened, and apparently she was slandered. At the moment works in my company, does not meet with anyone. Anyway, I've told you all about him in a nutshell. Enough. Kelly shrugged. What did she have to do with it? She be happy and don't know all that information about him. What do you think about all this, Dad? I'm allowed to go out with him. Do you want to? Kelly's daughter nodded and blushed. But I don't mind. He seems like a smart guy. He's good at his job. I think he might even get a promotion. He's young, but he's got a good head for the job. So you're not going alone. You'll have a guard with you. Got it. Who else is going? Christina and Stephen's friend. I think his name is John. I've got some information on his friend, but I don't think you're interested. By the way, he's been in a couple of bad situations, but it's no big deal. He seems like a regular guy to me, and I respect that kind of guy. I was like that myself when I was younger. But what about Stephen? I'm a little concerned, of course, but I don't mind having fun. Have a good weekend. Stephen looked at his watch and worried. They'd had a long talk with his mother today. He had told her that he had asked Kelly out on a date, but it was too soon to be happy. Of course, he needed Kelly's father's consent, so he waited with bated breath. As time went on, Kelly didn't call or write. He already thought that most likely her father found out something and forbade her to communicate with him. What should he do then? What to do? Had he lost everything? Maybe he's in a big hurry. Maybe he started this whole thing too soon. He probably should have waited a couple more months. He decided not to wait. So in his opinion, enough time had passed. What if this was the end of it? He chased all those bad thoughts out of his head as best he could, but they persisted. Suddenly, his phone beeped, and he realized it was a heart-stopping text message. He opened his phone and breathed a sigh of relief. Kelly, sorry it's late, but it's still on for tomorrow. He and Christina will drive themselves to the park. It was a victory. He rushed out of the room and ran to his mother. What son? Asked his mother anxiously, obviously having heard him rushing to her. Mom, we did it. You'll see a little more, and we'll have a wedding. Now I'm sure of everything. I'm so glad, my darling. You'll do so well tomorrow. Please be most considerate and gallant. A first date always makes a lasting impression on a girl. Do you understand me? I'll do everything right. You know me. At 12 o'clock, John arrived at Stephen's house by car. His friend on the phone last night asked him to go out with him. What does that have to do with me? Or can't you take a girl out on a date by yourself? Don't be ridiculous. She's not going out alone. She's going out with her friend. So please support me. Has our Stephen really fallen in love in his life? I haven't heard you talk me into it like that, have you? Well, tell me more about it. Who she is, she's so beautiful. John, you wouldn't understand me. And I'm not gonna say anything. Just tell me if you'll support me or not. But of course, when we don't support you, well, but for keeping quiet all this time. I resent you. I mean, you and I used to share everything. And then you got a girlfriend, and I still don't know anything. I didn't realize what happened to me at first, but that's beside the point. Listen, John, please, when you see her, please don't make any jokes. You got me. You're scaring me. Is there something wrong with her? You'll see tomorrow. Now, good night. See you tomorrow. And so they drove together in the car and didn't say a word. John saw that Stephen was thinking about something, but he didn't want to ask his friend anything. He must be really serious, because he had never seen him like this before. They pulled up to the park. John and Stephen got out of the car. There they are by that black car. I don't get it. Is she with security or something? Yeah, because I asked out the daughter of the man I work for. Robert, right? John, please don't make that face. It's not necessary right now. Besides, everybody's looking at us. She's gonna have a friend with her. So your job is to make her like you. Do you understand me? because she's probably gonna have to go on dates with her first. They came over, and they said hello. John immediately noticed the beautiful girl in the wheelchair. She reminded him of a flower, just as beautiful, unwelcoming. Standing next to her was apparently her friend. They introduced themselves to each other and walked to the park. John Christina did not like her. He didn't like girls like that at all. He couldn't stand blondes. Kelly, on the other hand, was probably his type of brunette with beautiful blue eyes. It was so beautiful that when she looked at him, he was speechless because he couldn't take his eyes off her. "You girls are so quiet. It's not like we're in the park. It's like we're in some horrible place," said John cheerfully to lighten the mood. "It's just been so long since I've been in a public place that I don't even know how to act," Kelly said. "It's weird. Maybe I'm going to ask a stupid question, but I want to hear you say why you're a normal girl. You don't have anything that would turn people away from you. Or is there another reason?" Stephen pushed his friend to the side, showing him that he was prying into his own body. But Kelly still answered John, "Is it for you? I'm a normal person, but to a lot of people around me I'm not. They try to get around me and the other way around. It always feels like I'm a leper. This I met very often on my way and realized that it is better for me not to see it, so I tried not to go anywhere." "Well, that's enough sadness. Let's have some fun. That's kind of what we came here for. Kelly, you've been on the Ferris wheel. You want a bird's eye view of the city. I haven't. How are we gonna do that? You're about to see it. John, go get your tickets. We're gonna show Kelly around." Kelly never had such a good time as the day they rode the Ferris wheel. Then Stephen took her on the carousel. She didn't agree to go on the other rides herself because she honestly admitted that she was scared because she had health problems. Then it was John's turn to ride with Christina, and Kelly and Stephen watched from the sidelines and ate ice cream. Kelly also remembered all the times Stephen would take her in his arms to put her on the merry-go-round or in the cab of the Ferris wheel. She couldn't explain how she felt at that moment. It felt really good. Kelly and Christina rode in the security car. John took Stephen home. "So how did you like Christina? Did you like the girl? But you know very well she's not my type. But I like today. The girls are very interesting, especially Kelly. I thought there was no one like her in the world anymore. That's with the brakes. She's my girlfriend. You get it, you get it. I'm not gonna beat her off just by reasoning with her. Although, believe me, if I'd met her sooner, you wouldn't have a chance. What makes you say that? I can tell she likes me." John didn't say anything. As he dropped Stephen off outside the house and drove to his house, his thoughts returned again to Kelly. He really liked this girl, but he could see that she only had eyes for Stephen. He didn't mind, and he was even happy for his friend. Just didn't like the whole thing. Be that as it may, and Stephen he had known for quite some time, and realized that he would never marry someone like Kelly. Besides, he would never even socialize with such people. And here he was, right here, he wouldn't leave her side. And that was very alarming. Stephen realized he couldn't wait any longer. He'd been seeing Kelly for 3 months now, and he was getting bored with it. He needed more of what he'd been going for all along. And his mom was getting impatient, saying it was probably time to propose, or someone else would show up, and then they'd steal her away from Stephen. And he didn't want that. So he decided it was time to take drastic measures. So he invited her to a restaurant. After that meeting in the park, Stephen was reassigned. He started earning more money and was finally able to buy a car. Now he drove Kelly everywhere by himself, and they didn't take John or Christina with them. So he called Kelly today and told her that he had a serious conversation with her and that he was taking her to a restaurant. "I don't like those phrases. It's scary," Kelly replied quietly as she listened to Stephen. "Don't be scared. It's okay. I just missed you. That's why I said that. Don't worry. I beg you." "Well, okay then. Tonight I'll what?" Before the date, my mother and I went to the jewelry store to buy a ring for Kelly. They argued for a long time, but then they decided. And finally, the The ring was in his pocket in a velvet box. Son, don't forget that even if she agrees, we have to ask for her father's hand in marriage. Because you know he's a serious man. So we need to impress him. If you can do that, you can imagine how you will fly. He will immediately move you to a higher place, because it is not proper for the husband of the daughter to engage in inappropriate activities. As far as I know, Kelly herself is head of analytics. Smart girl, my ass. Who'd have thought it? She's really smart, if only she wasn't a cripple. Doesn't make any difference to me, though. I don't like her. She's not my type, you know. I prefer blondes, not like her. Just my son. The main thing is that she doesn't realize you don't like her. If she does, it's all over. You know what I mean. I understand perfectly. Don't worry, I won't let you down. There's a reason I've been through so much, and I know there's no turning back. Christina was in Kelly's room and watched with burning eyes as her friend tried on her wedding dress. Wow, that's gorgeous. You look beautiful in it. Who's the groom's date for the wedding? John. John, of course. And you're on my side. How are things going with him, by the way? It's not. He's made it very clear that I'm not his type. I really liked him a lot, though. I think I'm gonna give it another shot at your wedding. Maybe I'll get lucky. What do you think? Christina, but there's a lot of focus on him. I mean, there's plenty of other guys out there. Well, he doesn't like you, that's fine. But he's not the only one. You know, it seems like everything, it seems like it's not. But sometimes, you're attracted to him. He's a really nice guy. When I'm with him, for some reason I always feel protected. I guess a girl needs that. It's just a shame our feelings aren't mutual. It makes me very sad. By the way, I've always wanted to ask you, where will you live after the wedding in this house? Dad said it's my house, and that's where I should stay. I actually agree with him. I'm very happy here. Stephen doesn't mind. He agrees. He said they like it very much too. Yeah, it's really nice here. Are you going on a honeymoon after the wedding? Of course, my father's arranged something for us, but I don't know. I was told it was a surprise. Stephen seems to know, but he won't say anything. And I don't insist. It's better to be a surprise. Christina, I still think I'm dreaming. I always thought I'd never get married. I don't think I'd ever be noticed by any guy. And then there's Stephen, and he's so handsome. Come on, you're very handsome too. I mean, look at you. You're just stunning. Stephen saw that and fell in love. That's right. I really want you to be happy. Kelly looked at her friend, thinking that they would be happy with Stephen, and thought that nothing could interfere with their happiness. Stephen arrived home and went straight into the kitchen. He looked at his mother glumly but said nothing. Son, I see you've got something going on. You won't tell me. I'm fed up. I can't stand it. To tell you the truth, I can't look at my wife. I'm so sick of her, but I can't stand it. And she's so right, so smart. She makes me sick. And I can't do anything. Unless it's with her, I'll lose everything. And I didn't work so hard to lose everything. What am I gonna do? Help me. Don't even think about divorce. Besides, Kelly's a beautiful girl. I don't understand what else you need. You have everything. You don't need anything. What do you need, son? I like another girl. I'm getting serious with her. You see, I love her. You see, I'm young, I'm handsome. Shouldn't I be happy? Why should I have to live with an invalid and suffer like this? Is that what you raised me for? You see, son, don't you feel bad? You're the richest man in the world now. You can afford anything you want, and because of your love, you'll lose everything. Do you understand? Just understand. Money doesn't come easy to anyone, and you just married a millionaire's daughter and still managed to complain. I see you've stopped thinking. Everything was fine, but you've gone off the rails. If your father-in-law finds out you're having an affair, he'll never forgive you. You know what I mean? And even here, I can't help you. I understand all that. So I came to you for advice. What do I do? What do I do? Miranda got up from the table and went to the window. She was silent for a long time, apparently thinking about something. Stephen looked at his mother and waited to see what she would finally say to him. I understand, and I share your feelings. To be honest, I haven't been lucky enough to be happy in my life. I don't want you to repeat my fate, but what I'm about to offer you is very serious. And think about whether you're capable of doing it for your own happiness. Mom, you know me. I'm always willing to go the extra mile if it's really worth it. All right. Chuckles, are you willing to wait a year to be a really happy person? A year? Why not a year? Why don't you tell me if you're willing to wait a year? I think so. If it makes me happy. Then listen carefully. It's been a long time since you and Kelly went on vacation. Besides, she's used to your luxurious life, so you suggest she go somewhere in the woods, in the country, where there's no civilization. For example, to live in a tent, to fish in the river. There's not much to do in nature. I think she'd like that. Besides, as far as I understand, with you she feels protected, so she'll go along with anything. So when you get there, you should take a good look around the area. See if there are people around, so that there are no witnesses. And then just throw her off a cliff or into the river, presenting it as an accident. Do you understand me? And the most important thing is that I don't say anything about this vacation right away. Just give her the idea that she would like to go to the nature, so that no one would guess anything. Stephen's silence. He was thinking of making an accident for his wife, but he didn't know how. But his mother had explained it all so well that he knew he would do it. All he had to do was talk Kelly into it, because he knew she wasn't a nature lover. Stephen met up with John just before he left for vacation. They sat down in a cafe to talk for a while. But how are you doing? I haven't heard from you in a while. I'm fine. I just thought since you're a family man, you shouldn't be distracted. Oh, come on. I'm tired of being a family man. I'm exhausted. Oh, well, you wouldn't understand me anyway. You're a single man. Explain it to me. I just thought you liked Kelly, and now something's wrong. Don't worry about it. I'm just saying that. Listen, my wife and I are going on a camping trip. I want to teach her how to fish, how to live in a tent, and show her how good it is out there. We'll have a vacation together, and things will get better. I always thought you hated the outdoors. Besides, why go there with Kelly? You know, she's a little different from us. It would be hard on her, only it's not my idea. It's hers, so you have to do it. You know, she's used to getting everything she wants. Now I'm her husband, and I do all her whims. John frowned, because he knew that Kelly was nothing like Stephen was describing her now, although he just maybe didn't know her enough. Or maybe she acts so incomprehensible to him. Although he had talked to Christina back then, when they were still on a date together. She was telling him about Kelly, and he'd heard nothing but good things about her. How kind, smart, fair. That's when he drew his conclusions about her. And he watched Kelly himself, and came to the same opinion that she's a wonderful person. And then he hears from Stephen not at all flattering comments, and what to think now he didn't know. Although, looking at his friend, he saw that he became some kind of wooden, angry. Everything irritated him, and he didn't like it at all. When you're going, I'll see you again. Yeah, if only at the end of the week. Because we're all set for next Monday. Let's move. John was fine with that. He hated not understanding things. He saw that his friend was nervous for some reason, and he didn't like it at all. And for some reason he felt uneasy, and he knew that this uneasiness had something to do with Kel. Then he decided to follow Stephen a little. The father looked at his daughter anxiously and did not share her optimism. You don't know what you're talking about. You nature two things are incompatible. I'm worried about you. Besides, we decided to go alone. What the hell is that? Dad, I didn't get it at first either, but as it turns out, it's not far from here. So don't worry about it. And it's connected. You're talking to me like I'm going to the jungle, but that's not where I'm going. Oh, I see. Why do you want to go to the wilderness? I don't know. I saw a movie with Stephen the other day. They were making soup, and he told me that he and his class used to go camping. And they made soup just like that, and that he would never forget the taste. So I wanted to. You know, I've never tasted anything like it. He went to his daughter and hugged her. It was true, his girl had not seen a lot of things in her life, and how happy he was for her now, seeing that she was living a full life. And he, in turn, would do anything for her just to make his daughter happy. John was already on his second day of driving around town for Stephen. He took a special day off. I don't know why he'd do that, but for some reason he had an uneasy feeling that Stephen was up to no good. By the end of the second day, he decided that he would not follow his friend anymore because he was only traveling for work. But by the evening, he saw what he probably expected to see. It shook him up pretty badly. He was glad that on Saturday they would meet again, and then he would ask him what he wanted after all. And if it was true, he'd better get it all out of his head before it was too late. Kelly happily gathered herself for this dreamy walk. Christina looked at her friend anxiously. I don't know why they had to go into the woods. I mean, really, Kelly, what's gotten into you? I'm sorry to say these things, but this isn't the city. It's hard for a man with legs, aren't you? I'm sorry again, but I'm really trying to understand you. It's no big deal. We'll take a romantic camping trip. Have you ever heard? I've never been outdoors, and I really want to. Plus, you're like my dad. What are you so worried about? You'd think I'd be leaving home hundreds of miles away. And this is right next door. Stephen showed me on the map that it's close to here. You can check it out for yourself. Yes? And then there's cell service. So call me every day and I'll let you know how I'm doing. I know it's hard for Stephen to listen to me talk sometimes, so I'm gonna tell my impressions to myself. And Christina frowned. It seemed to her that when Kelly talked about Stephen, she became sad. She wanted to ask her friend if everything was normal in her family life, but she didn't, because she knew that if Kelly wanted to tell her something, she would have done it. John never got to meet Stephen. He said he had a lot of things to do and couldn't get out for meetings. And on Monday morning, he left with Kelly for the woods, and for some reason John didn't like this idea, though he couldn't understand it himself. Why? Kelly excitedly looked around at the birds that were hovering around her. There was some rustling, and she turned her head with delight, looking at them with interest. Stephen assembled the tent with a smile, watching his wife. Stephen, what's that strange knocking? It's that uncle. There are many of them. They are the sanitarians of the forest. If it weren't for them, many trees would be dead by now. What's that cracking noise? Is it so strange? It doesn't sound like a rhinoceros. It's a grouse. There's a lot of them here too. It's a protected area, and all birds and animals are protected. And there are bears here. There are, but they don't come here. We're not in the middle of a protected area after all. I know we can't take any risks, but this is perfect. So don't worry. There won't be any animals attacking. When night fell, Kelly couldn't sleep for a long time. She tried to lie down, but she realized that wasn't the point. She was constantly distracted by some rustling, some fussing. She was a little scared. But then she looked at Stephen, who had been asleep for a long time, and calmed down. If her husband was calm, then she needn't worry at all. And toward morning, when she finally fell asleep, she had a strange dream. Her husband was pushing her into the abyss and smiling at her. She couldn't believe what was happening. Then, as she began to fall, she woke up screaming. Stephen looked into the tent and smiled. Finally, I thought I had you sleeping all day. You know how people are like that when they get to the countryside. They want to sleep. My mom used to tell me she had a friend like that. It was impossible to go out with her. She'd lie down and sleep. That's what the fresh air did to her. How are you feeling? I'm fine. You look a little pale. I just had a bad dream. You know, I was really scared. It's just the new place has got to you. All the excitement, The noise. You're not rested. I had a stupid dream too. Kelly washed his face in a very unpleasant way. I seem to remember the whole dream, and it felt like it was real. She saw it so clearly. It was very unpleasant. I made some coffee and we went fishing. I found a beautiful spot. You'll love watching me fish. They had breakfast. And then Stephen took the fishing rods and rolled the baby carriage. Kelly to the river. She could hear her because there was a noise coming from there. Apparently the river was fast. But Kelly couldn't see it from behind the trees. Besides, she couldn't swim, and she didn't like water at all. She had always had a fear of water. Soon the trees parted, and she saw the river, not very wide but still fast. They found themselves on a platform that ended in a cliff. She was frightened and looked at Stephen. So you're afraid your baby carriage will roll? Don't worry. I've got it all figured out. I'll put it where you can see me fishing and not get hurt. Kelly smiled and felt a little calmer. She began to admire nature again and look around. Suddenly, she thought she saw someone hiding in the distance. She could have sworn that she could even feel the eyes on her. But then she thought that it was probably her imagination playing tricks on her after the night. And then carefully, looking again at the spot, she saw nothing else. Stephen cast the rod, and she began to watch with interest. Soon he caught the first fish. She didn't know what the fish was called, but she didn't care. She watched it with delight as her husband placed it near the stroller. Then he cast the rod again and caught a small fish again. She was having fun. Kelly was oblivious to everything. Watching the fishing for the third time, she caught a big fish, and she saw that her husband was having a hard time pulling it out. "Mash, I need a net. I can't get it out this way. Help me. What should I do?" "Just take the net. It's not far from you, and give it to me. Don't be afraid of anything. There's no tablecloth down there. I'm watching you." Kelly quickly picked up the net and wheeled the wheelchair over to her husband to hand it to him. But then she saw Stephen put down the rod and turn toward her. It was as if time had slowed down for her. She didn't realize what he was doing, and he just took her by the stroller, pulled her up to him, and looked into the classrooms. "But what is it, sweetheart? It's time for you and me to say goodbye. If you only knew how bored I am with you. I want to live my life. You know, love who I want. I never even liked you. I married you for your money. Well, now it's goodbye. It's over. I'm finally rid of you." Kelly looked at Stephen in horror, remembering her dream. But how? How is this possible? He was her husband, her favorite person, the one she was happy with. And so he was unhappy with her. So he was faking it. But what does it matter? What is she thinking? She's going to die anyway. She can't save herself in water like this. She can't swim. Besides, half her body doesn't work, and she can't do anything. And that's when Stephen pushed her down. The last thing she saw was him smiling. Robert couldn't find a place to go. Rescuers had been working for the third day, but Kelly's body had not yet been found. Believe me, we'll do what we can, but it's possible she was carried away much faster than we think, and we need to widen the search. Anything could have happened. Maybe she got sucked into some kind of whirlpool. Or is she lying on the bottom right now? Get the right divers. Get the right divers. Get whoever you want. My daughter. Find her. I'll pay you. Only, please, my children, her. He looked at his son-in-law, who walked with a pale face. He felt sorry for him. After all, the first thing he had done was to attack him without realizing what he was doing. But Stephen stoically endured everything, realizing what a grief it was. Besides, he himself rushed after her, only he could not understand where she had gone. They found the baby carriage not far from where they were fishing, but Kelly's body was gone. John drove over to Christina's house to talk to her. She happily came out to him. "I really don't know what it's about." "Hi, Christina. Long time no see. How are you doing? Everything okay?" "John, what brings you here? I need to talk to you. Listen, you were at Kelly's the other night. Before they went on that camping trip, right?" "Yeah, And you didn't notice anything weird? I mean, maybe Kelly was scared or sad. No, everything was fine. She was happy and so excited to go on a nature trip. And then this happened. I still can't believe it. I feel sorry for Robert. He's been so down since his daughter died. He's not like himself. Why do you ask? It just came to me. I'm still in shock myself. You're right. But wait, I did think Kelly was hiding something from me. And it's about Stephen. I don't know why, but I felt like I didn't have to ask her anything because I knew my friend so well. If she doesn't want to talk, there's no way she'll say anything. I thought I'd talk to her after the trip. And you see how it turned out. John nodded. In fact, that was all he wanted to hear. He got into the car as he saw that he had a missed call on his phone. Looking at the screen, he saw that Stephen was calling him. It had been a long time since they had talked. He didn't insist, realizing that he didn't really care about him right now. Stephen, hi. You called me, but where have you been? Friend, I've been waiting for you to call. But you've completely forgotten about me. I just didn't think you cared about me. You can't stop grieving, though. But what's happened is that I'm going to die of sadness. We're all mortal. Today we are someone else tomorrow, vice versa. So you have to live and enjoy every day. Listen, let's go to a restaurant tonight. I'm sick of everything. I want to relax a little. Okay, let's do it. What time? Let's make it 6 o'clock. I don't have anything to do. I'm afraid I won't have time. I could go out of town for work. Let's make it 8. I think I'll be done by then. John wondered why Stephen suddenly wanted to go to a restaurant. If it were him, he'd probably be pining for Kelly. And nothing in his life would make him happy anymore. Stephen's doing fine. He moved on. He didn't care about anything else. He was free. He didn't get home until 8 o'clock, as he'd hoped. He barely made it home in time to shower and change. At exactly 8 o'clock, he pulled up to the restaurant Stephen had told him. Someone was sitting at a table drinking cognac. I was afraid you weren't coming. I called your phone again, but it was unavailable. I told you I went to the country, and there's no reception there. It was just a work thing. We're building a small factory there, so I have to go there all the time to check what's going on. Realizing you don't have a good job, I'll get you a job at our company. My father-in-law will do everything for me. All I have to say is you'll make a lot of money. Besides, I'm gonna get it all soon. Kelly, my girlfriend's smart. She even left a will. And I'm the full owner of her stock, her share of the company. So I'm a rich man, and I put in a good word for you. Besides, I need my own people in the company. I'm tired of dealing with my father-in-law's men. It's time for me to get my own people. Not yet. I've got 6 more months to go, but I think I can do it. But what about you? Are you in? I'll think about my offer, but I'll give you an answer later, because I can't let down my boss, with whom we have a contract. When the construction is finished, we'll talk then. I think it'll be finished in 6 months. By then, I hope you haven't changed your mind about taking me in. I haven't changed my mind. You're my friend. If you knew, John, how sometimes I wish I could talk frankly, only I can't. And I have a lot to say. John could see that Stephen was a little drunk and decided to push him a little on the subject he was so interested in. Namely, what had happened on the cliff. He didn't believe it was an accident. You know me. You can trust me with anything. I'll always listen to you. I'll even give you advice if you need it. You see, I'm in love, and it's so hard not being together. I think about her all the time. I can't sleep. I can't eat without her. Can you tell me what to do? John frowned. He hadn't expected that from Stephen. I understand, Stephen, but you said yourself that you have to move on. Kelly's not coming back, and that's why. What's Kelly got to do with it? I never loved her. I only wanted her so I could live like this now, so I could be rich and not think about tomorrow. I'm talking about Sophia, you know. As soon as I saw her, I fell in love with her. But my father-in-law's always on the lookout, So I've been seeing her on the sly and in secret. Now she wants me to marry her. And I have to keep mourning for another 6 months. But I'm afraid that doesn't suit her. And if she doesn't wait for me, what am I supposed to do? Then she's not your woman, and she doesn't love you. Cold, John replied. He felt uncomfortable sitting at the same table with a man like Stephen. He couldn't even understand when this had happened to him. He used to be a normal guy. And now what had he become? Stephen didn't seem to notice how John had changed. He kept ranting. And that father-in-law is always hanging around me. I'm sick of him, but I don't give a damn. I couldn't take care of my little girl. That's not my problem. You shouldn't have let us go to the country then. I'm sick of them all. You should know how much I hate them all. John didn't want to hear any more. He was disgusted. He got up and said that he had an urgent matter to solve. She opened the classrooms, not realizing where the body was. Everything hurt terribly. It felt like she had been ground through a meat grinder. She wanted to lift her head, but she couldn't. She closed her eyes again and fell into sleep. When she woke up again, she realized she was alone again. There was no one around, but she felt a little better herself, and she felt a soft warmth. She turned her head to see where she was. The house was clean. Pickett wasn't very cozy. The sun played bunnies on the floor and on the windowsill. White curtains fluttered in the wind, and the smell of wormwood wafted to her. She closed her eyes again. Could she be in heaven? When she's ready to stay here forever? She closed her eyes again when suddenly she heard footsteps on the porch. Someone was coming, and she didn't want to show that she'd come to her senses at first. To see for herself if she should trust this person or not. What if it was her husband? The memory of him made her chest ache again. She didn't understand how he could do that to her. It turned out to be very simple. He didn't love her. That's all. Someone was walking in the room. Then he came to her bed and leaned over. She couldn't stand it, opened her eyes and cried out. It was John. Kelly, just don't be afraid of me. I didn't hurt you. Kelly nodded. Tears rolled from her eyes. She didn't remember well what had happened to her then after the fall. She remembered well the cold blows and then being carried somewhere. Then she felt someone grab her. She saw it was John and lost consciousness. Then when she came to, she thought she'd dreamed it all up. But it turned out he had saved her. Then what should she do? He's a close friend of her husband's, so she doesn't have long to live. Soon he'll show up and finish the job, and she won't be able to do anything. She's helpless on this bed. Plus her whole body still hurts so far, so she can't even move. John looked at her and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks. She closed her eyes again, but out of fear. Don't be afraid of me. Mash, I'm sorry it happened like that. I was late. Until the last I didn't think Stephen was capable of such a thing. But to be honest, I felt something and followed you. Kelly opened her eyes and looked at John, so she wasn't imagining it. And she really felt followed. So it was you who was watching us on the fishing trip. Yeah, that was me. I'm sorry I was almost late, but it's okay. I managed to save you. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to do next. I mean, he wanted to kill you. And I still can't believe it. How long have I been here? Almost 3 weeks is a long time to recover. My grandmother lives here, and she's been treating you. We were really scared for you, and I told her that if things continued to get this bad, I would take you into town and tell your father. If you want, I can take you now. Dad's there. I don't want to go anywhere yet. I need to think about it. I know it's wrong, but I need to get my head together. Kelly has been living with her grandmother Vera for 6 months now, helping her with herbs, learning how to brew them properly. She was waiting now too. Grandmother was looking out the window. It was raining outside today. It had been raining since morning, and it was unclear whether it would go on all day or end soon. Then she remembered the meeting with her father and smiled. It had been a week since that conversation with John. She didn't want to see anyone was so depressed she didn't want to live herself. Then she thought about her father and realized that it wasn't his fault, that he had always tried to do everything for her. She was just mocking him now. When John came again to see how she was doing, she told him to bring her father to her. But what better way to do it? From what I understand, you wouldn't want Stephen to find out. It's too soon for him to know I'm back from the dead. But you should tell your father. I don't want him jeopardizing his health for me. Then do this. I'll tell him how to get an appointment. As I recall, he was interested in some land he wanted to buy. You'll have to offer him a place. Tell him it's right for him. I'll give you the details in a moment. Adding that you don't need intermediaries, that he's the one who should see the place. He'll understand and go with you. Besides, he already knows you a little bit, and I think he won't resist. Just make sure he doesn't recognize Stephen. Okay, Kelly, I'll do as you say. And John, when you get to the place, I want you to prepare him a little bit, because I'm really worried about him, because I don't want him to get hurt. She'll never forget the look on his face when he saw her. The two of them cried and talked for a long time then. John and Grandma waited for them outside. And when they'd had enough, they sat down to tea together. I don't understand how you can wait so long. We have to catch him now and put him in jail. He wanted to kill you. I'm sorry, Dad, but that would be easy for him. And I want revenge. I'm not an evil man, but I can't forgive this. And you know very well how I felt about him. And he knew it. If he had told me the truth, that he wanted a divorce, that he just wanted more money, I would have given him everything. I wouldn't have been sorry. That's why I want to prepare a little bit too, like he's been preparing all this time. John, thank you so much for your daughter. If it wasn't for you, I don't know what would have happened to my little girl. How can I ever thank you? Why don't you join my company? That's the kind of guy I need out there. I'd love to work for you, Robert. I'm afraid I can't yet. Stephen will get the wrong idea. He'll start asking questions, and he might get suspicious. Let's talk about it after this is over. You're right. We'll talk about it after. Now we're going. Come on, daughter. Get ready. Dad, I'm gonna stay here. It's better for everyone. Stephen doesn't live in our house now, but he can come anytime. Besides, I'll be seen by Aunt Clara, your guards, and there's a lot of people there. Even though they're loyal to you, they can still negotiate. So I'll stay here. And you can come and see me anytime. Robert didn't argue. He could see that his daughter was doing very well here. Besides, her grandmother said she was still in treatment, and it would be better for Kelly to stay here. So she's been delayed. It's been over 6 months, a little longer, and soon everything will be back to normal. She'll go back to her father. She'll be back at the company, working and living like nothing ever happened. But it won't be like before. She'll constantly think about what Stephen did to her, but it didn't bother her as much as it used to. She started thinking about John a lot. I really liked that guy, especially his attitude toward her. She began to see the difference between John and Stephen, realized how wrong she'd been. She had mistaken flirting for love. John really loved her, and it showed. Stephen arrived home, and the first thing he did was go into the kitchen. Mom was sitting there reading a magazine. She looked at her son and smiled well. Son, there is not much left, and soon there will be everything you have dreamed of for so long. And what's so overcast? It seems to me that you should rejoice, because the victory is ours. So I am. I'm not happy though. You know, I feel like my father-in-law's been weird with me lately. The first time he was in mourning, I was doing all the work. And then all of a sudden, it's like he's gone. He won't let me do anything. And now he's giving the most important things not to me, but to his deputy. I thought I was his right-hand man. Now I don't know what's going on in the company. It's disturbing. It's really weird. What's he saying? You asked him about it, right? He doesn't say much. He barely talks to me. And the best part is he doesn't even mention his daughter. And he's having fun. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. It's probably a defensive reaction to what's going on. He realized that he lost his daughter. but naturally, it makes him feel very bad. Our body at such moments tries to put a protective block, and a person begins to live as if nothing had happened. It's okay. Just be patient. Soon half of the company will go to you, as he will have to reckon with you. The main thing is, son, you did it. You did the right thing. And I'm also here to see you about Sophia. I wanted to ask you how things are going over there. It's not good. I've got her so much money. I'm broke. I'm waiting for the inheritance to come to me, and I still don't know where we're putting it. You've got good taste, son. Well, it's up to you, of course, but be careful with her. It's not long before she's pantsless. John sadly realized that Kelly would be leaving his grandmother's tonight. That's right, it's time. Tomorrow, Stephen would go to the notary to sign the necessary papers and receive the inheritance. But that wasn't the point. It seemed to him that as soon as Kelly left for the city, a wall would grow between them. She wouldn't want to hang out with him anymore. After all, they were so good together. He saw it and felt it. Kiryusha, why are you so sad? Something happened. He looked at Kelly, wanted to say that no, but then remembered that they agreed to tell each other the truth. And it was only on the truth that they built this fragile relationship. I'm afraid of losing you. I feel like as soon as you cross the threshold and leave, you'll forget about me. John, what are you talking about? You saved my life. That's one thing. And second of all, I've gotten to know you over the past year. I know a certain kind of person, and believe me, I'm not gonna let you go that easily. I feel good with you. I really hope to continue our communication with you. Stephen drove to the notary's office. At the appointed time, he saw his father-in-law's car and grimaced. He thought that he had absolutely nothing to do here, but apparently he had to be present at the reading of the will. All right, let him be here if it wouldn't interfere with anything. He has endured the morning, and now he can go about his business and his life in peace. Robert was no one to him now. He was on his way to the building when he saw his friend John pull up. They hadn't spoken much lately. Stephen had called him, but he kept saying he was busy and couldn't meet him. Hi, what are you doing here? I had some business to check out. Why are you here? Well, it's my birthday. It's been a year, and I'm inheriting the estate that my untimely departed Janny left me. I propose to celebrate tonight at the restaurant. Are you coming to congratulate me? Probably not. It's a celebration without me. I think you'll find someone. Who to celebrate with? Hey, did you get a girlfriend? 'Cause you weren't like this before. You were always hanging out with me. And now you're like a stranger. You're right. I have a girlfriend. She and I are in love. And I really hope we get married soon. But you have to. You'll invite me to the wedding. You know, somehow, I don't think you'll have time for me. Besides, you're getting an inheritance, and that opens up a whole new set of prospects for you. So you won't have time for my wedding. Well, you mean, invite me. Maybe I can make time for you. John did not answer, but walked silently forward and out of the door. Stephen looked after him, not understanding what had happened to his friend. He had seen the way he looked at him today and did not understand the reason. Then it became clear to him. John was just jealous of him. Understandably, he has to work all the time. When Stephen's life was going great, and now it would be even better. The notary didn't see him at the appointed time. He had to wait another half hour, but Stephen didn't care. There was no hurry now. Everything went as smoothly as possible. No one noticed anything. No one guessed anything, and he would wait. He waited a year, so now it's just a half hour for him. And finally, he was invited. He walked into the office with a smile and froze. First he saw her. She was sitting next to her father in his wheelchair, and she looked beautiful. It was Kelly, the living Kelly. Standing next to her was John. Stephen noticed that Kelly was holding his hand. He didn't realize what was happening. He thought at first that he was just going crazy with joy, or that he was just dreaming. And then he'd wake up, and it would all go away. It's not gonna happen. And he'd have everything just the way he wanted it. The cops came up to him, cuffed his hands. They talked about how he was accused of killing his wife. But he wasn't interested in hearing it. It came to him that everything was gone, that he had not become a millionaire and the owner of the company, that now he would be shut down and he would now be in jail. Then he looked at John. I remembered his words that he would not invite him to the wedding, that Stephen simply would not have time to come to them. So he knew everything. Well, why didn't he tell them? What do you care? He's still going to jail for killing his wife.